Chapter 1406. Since you know that I'm from Guide City, do you think I wouldn't know that this was originally Zhuangzi tomb? Zhou said coldly. This is Zhuangzi tomb. Is there a problem? Woods asked with a puzzled expression. As one of the representatives of Taoism, will such a dimensional zone be as safe as it looks on the surface? I'm just afraid that we won't be able to dig the primordial crystal mine and end up dying here. Zhou didn't say anything because he still wanted to make a deal. Woods was somewhat nervous when he heard Zhou say that. If Zhou really noticed a problem, it would be impossible for him to change the heavenly robe back. Mr. Zhou, you're being too subjective. We have already discovered the primordial crystal mine here for a long time. Now, as you can see, there's no problem here. If you don't believe me, you can stay for another 2 days or attempt to mine the primordial crystals. Our Cape family will definitely not lie or do anything that violates the contract, Wood said seriously. Then we'll do as you say. We'll stay here for a few more days. If there's really no problem, I'll immediately transfer the heavenly robe to you, Zhou said indifferently. Woods cursed inwardly. He had only wanted to dispel Zhou's doubts, but he never expected Zhou to really stay for a few days. If that were the case, something might really happen. Of course. Although Wood said that he was burning with anxiety, he was thinking about how he could get Zhou a hand over the heavenly robe as soon as possible. Sheng, go make preparations. Find a good place to set up camp and entertain Mr. Woods and company. They are guests from afar, so we can't neglect them, Zhou said to Sheng. And Sheng understood and got someone to find a place to set up camp. He even got someone to transport supplies over, as though he was going to stay here for a long time. Woods was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Mr. Zhou, you can stay here for as many days as you want, but we can't keep delaying this deal, right? We know that you aren't the kind of person who doesn't uphold the spirit of a contract, but you have to give us a deadline, right? The family head is still waiting. We have to return and give him an explanation. Woods patiently probed. Let's limit it to 5 days. As long as nothing happens in the next 5 days, I'll immediately transfer the heavenly robe to you and complete our transaction, Zhou said. Woods knew that he couldn't wait 5 days. In another 4 days, the dimensional zone would undergo an anomaly. When that happened, it would definitely be all for naught. However, Woods couldn't think of a way to get Zhou to immediately transfer the heavenly robe to him. Just as Woods' scalp was about to explode from his thoughts, an officer suddenly ran over on a companion beast. He looked extremely pathetic and had several injuries on his body. It looked like he had just experienced a huge battle. Young Master One, Adjutant, and bad news. A large number of breakout creatures have appeared in Dragon Gate Grotto. Governor Qin is leading the Sunset Army to resist with all their might. There are heavy casualties. Please return immediately to provide reinforcements. The officer jumped off his companion beast and rushed in front of Zhou as he shouted. What? Zhou and Sheng were alarmed as they got up to leave. Mr. Zhou, you can't leave. According to our agreement, we have already brought you to the primordial crystal mine. Before you hand over the heavenly robe companion beast, you are not to leave this place. Woods and company immediately stopped Zhou. At that moment, Woods was overjoyed. The heavens are really helping me. Young Master One, why don't you stay here? I'll bring my brothers back to provide reinforcements, and Sheng said anxiously. Adjutant, that won't do. Governor Qin said that there might be calamity creatures appearing. Young Master One has to return. Otherwise, I'm afraid Luoyang really won't be able to hold on. Young Master One, quickly return. It'll be too late if you delay any longer. The officer was about to cry. Young Master One, and Sheng looked at Zhou anxiously. Zhou was still hesitant. This is the former manor tomb. I have a nagging feeling that this place isn't that simple. Sigh, Mr. Zhou, you're really overthinking things. Why don't we do this? Now that Luoyang is in trouble, we'll do our best. There's still some primordial crystals left. I'll give them to you. There's still some companion eggs here. Take them back as well. Consider it a token of our appreciation. I hope they can help Luoyang survive this crisis. Woods pointed at the valley and said, This place isn't that big. You can see everything at a glance. If there's anything amiss, you should have seen it long ago. Even if you didn't, with so many people walking so many times, something would have happened long ago if there was any danger. It wouldn't have waited until now. If you're still worried, walk a few more rounds. After confirming that there's no problem and completing the transaction, we'll head to Luoyang with you and help you fend off the dimensional creatures that have broken out. We'll also stay in Luoyang for a few days. If there's really a problem, it won't be too late to look for us. Now, Woods only wanted to trick Tian E as soon as possible. The rest could wait. Young Master 1, the overall situation is important. And Sheng anxiously persuaded Zhou when he saw that he was still hesitating. All right, let's do as Mr. Woods says. Zhou gritted his teeth and walked in front of Woods. He held his hand and said as though he was touched, I won't say anything else. Thank you for your help, Mr. Woods. You really are a good person. Without waiting for Woods to say a word, Zhou released his hand and said to Sheng, Ah Sheng, quickly move the things back. We'll immediately return to the rescue. Mr. Zhou, that Tiani, Wood was a little anxious. Get them to move the things. I'll transfer it to you now. As Zhou spoke, he began circulating his primordial energy. His face flushed red as though he was using a taboo power. Seeing that Zhou was about to turn Tian, Woods couldn't stop Sheng and company from moving the things. All he could do was stand in front of Zhou and wait for him to turn Tiani around. As transferring a companion beast required quite a sizable price, Woods felt that it was impossible for Zhou to pay no price, even if he had any special abilities. It was normal for Zhou to look like this. Zhou constantly circulated his primordial energy, but he had no intention of taking action. The things were almost done moving. Woods couldn't help but ask when Zhou suddenly extended his hand and pressed it against his chest. It's coming. Woods immediately swallowed the words he was about to say and waited to receive the companion beast. However, after waiting for a while, he saw Zhou's face turn redder, but Woods didn't sense the companion beast turn around at all. As for the things on the other side, Sheng and company had almost finished moving them. Woods felt that something was amiss. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Zhou roar, "Go!" Woods immediately felt a force enter his body as wisps of companion beast energy surged into his body. He was immediately overjoyed. Soon, the companion beast was transferred to Woods. Zhou said with a pale face, Mr. Woods, take a look. Is this the companion beast we mentioned previously? Don't make a mistake. That's right. It's a terror-grade, celestial companion beast. Thank you very much, Mr. Zhou. Are you all right? Woods confirmed a few times that the skill was the same as written in the contract, but he was still worried. He summoned it out and transformed it into the celestial robe. Only when he saw that it was identical to what Zhou wore did he feel relieved. Since the transaction has been completed, I'll head back to provide support. If there's a chance in the future, let's work together again. Zhou and Woods completed the handover and contract before leaving with Sheng. Chapter 1407. Woods was overjoyed. Although he had to pay a higher price in the end, it was all worth it as long as he could obtain the heavenly robe. Mr. Woods, something doesn't seem right. Why did Zhou and company leave so quickly? Why didn't they call us to Luoyang? Woods said suspiciously. However, Woods seemed to be a little too excited. The heavenly robe is really there. There won't be any problems. At least to Luoyang. How would they dare to let us go to Luoyang? When the time comes, not only will they not help us, but they will also have to send people to watch over us. Let's not talk so much. Quick, let's test the heavenly robe's abilities. Woods stroked the heavenly robe on his body with an eager expression. Woods summoned a bow and aimed it at Woods. However, he didn't dare aim at Woods's vital points. He only shot his arm. With a whoosh, the arrow tore through the air and arrived in front of Woods. Woods didn't dodge. When the arrow arrived in front of him, the heavenly robe immediately moved without any wind. It pulled his body and dodged the arrow. Haha! As expected of the heavenly robe. With this robe in hand, it's easy for our Cape family to enter the rankings. In the future, even if a calamity grade expert wants to make things difficult for our Cape family, with this robe, we might still have the strength to fight. Come, shoot me a few more arrows. Let me feel the magical power of the heavenly robe, Woods said excitedly. Wood was overjoyed when he saw that the heavenly robe was indeed magical. He immediately drew his bow and shot a few arrows in a row. As he had already confirmed that the heavenly robe was indeed useful, Wood didn't choose any special spots and randomly shot at Woods. Woods stood there without any intention of dodging. He believed that since the heavenly robe could allow him to dodge the first arrow, the subsequent arrows were no different in terms of strength from the first arrow. It was impossible for him to dodge them. However, how could he know that there was a chance of the heavenly robe dodging? He was lucky to trigger the heavenly robe's lucky dodge, but without the augmentation of lucky equipment, the heavenly robe's dodging rate wasn't high. Everyone was jubilant, waiting for Tion-E to show her magic, but they suddenly heard Woods scream. Out of the 7 or 8 arrows that would shot out, 5 of them hit Woods. 4 of them hit heavenly robe. The heavenly robe's defense wasn't bad. After all, it was a piece of terror-grade equipment. It blocked the 4 arrows, but one of the arrows hit Woods' face. It didn't block it at all as it shot into his nose. The pain caused Woods to fall to the ground and roll around in pain. How could this be? Wood and the others were dumbfounded. After they came to their senses, they quickly ran to Woods, took back the arrows, and treated his wounds. Woods, is this heavenly cloth fake? Did you see it clearly? Woods' expression changed when he saw Woods' nose turn into a bloody hole. It's not fake. The information from heavenly cloth isn't wrong. It's a terror-grade heavenly cloth. It does have the ability to dodge. You saw it just now? The first arrow was dodged by heavenly cloth. But how did the subsequent arrows? Woods was alarmed and doubtful. He didn't dare be so sure as he repeatedly confirmed the information from heavenly cloth. All the skills and abilities were identical to what Zhou Wen had written in the contract. The levels weren't bad either. Sense the details of those skills again. Sense as much as you can and see if there are any problems, Woods said. Woods hurriedly sensed it. After a while, his expression turned nasty as his body began to tremble. There's a certain chance of this dodging skill. Not all attacks can be dodged. We have been fooled. Woods trembled in anger. How could this be? Then how did Zhou Wen use it to dodge all the calamity-grade attacks? Wood asked in a daze. He now understood that they had been fooled. There were probably no breakout creatures in Luoyang. Zhou Wen and company were deliberately scamming them. How would I know? Woods was too deep for tears. He suddenly struggled to get up, took out his phone, and called in Sheng. As he dialed, he said hatefully, "No, we aren't done with the Yin family. We have to get them to give us an explanation." After the phone rang a few times, and Sheng's voice sounded, "Mr. Woods, do you have any business to take care of again?" And Sheng, that heavenly cloth can't dodge 100% of the attacks. "This is a scam," Woods said angrily. Although he knew that it was useless to be angry, he couldn't hold back the anger in his heart. He originally thought that he had exchanged an impossible primordial crystal mine for a huge bargain, but he never expected that the items he exchanged for were similarly useless. They even lost nearly 200 tons of primordial crystals. Originally, they only needed to pay an additional 100 tons, but together with what they had given to Sheng and what Zhou Wen had scammed, it was almost worth 100 tons. And Sheng said calmly, "Mr. Woods, please don't say that. Our family has always been trustworthy. It's impossible for us to sell you fake goods. Are the level and abilities of the heavenly robe exactly the same as what's written in the contract? If there's no discrepancy, how can it be a fake companion beast? But there's a certain chance of the heavenly cloth dodging. Even a mythical attack can't be completely dodged, much less a calamity-grade attack," Woods said in exasperation. "Oh, that? Of course. The heavenly cloth's dodging ability requires the augmentation of a luck stat. The higher the luck stat, the higher the chances of successfully dodging. If you need it, we also have luck companion beasts for sale," and Sheng said. Woods and company were taken aback when they heard that. Woods said in disbelief, "He even needs the augmentation of the luck stat? Didn't Zhou Wen only use the heavenly cloth previously? How can he dodge all of them?" "Mr. Woods, this can't be compared. My young master is a lucky person blessed by the heavens. He has received the favor and care of the heavens. He was born with luck. No matter how low the chances are, when it comes to my young master, there's a 100% chance. However, it's different for the average person. He still needs the augmentation of some luck equipment to achieve the desired effect of the heavenly cloth. And Shung's words were clearly saying, "How can you unlucky bastards compare to our young master? Don't you know what kind of trash you are? Adjutant, are you sure luck equipment can increase the dodging rate? What kind of luck equipment can achieve a 100% dodging rate?" Woods resisted the urge to curse in Shung as he asked in a low voice. "Of course I'm sure. If you don't believe me, you can use luck equipment to test it. As for how much luck stat augmentation is needed, I'm not too sure. Previously, my young master had quite a lot of luck equipment on him. He relied on them to achieve a 100% dodge rate. Now that the heavenly cloth has been sold to you, those luck companion beasts are useless. If you want them, I can persuade young master to transfer the luck companion beast to you. He will definitely give you a discount on the price. After all, you are old customers," and Shang said. "I'll give a try first. We'll talk about the luck companion beast later." Woods hung up the phone and braced himself to contact the head of the Cape family. He told him the whole story. "Come back and try using the luck companion beast first before discussing the countermeasures." The Cape family head knew that it was useless to say anything now. All he could do was let them return first. If they could achieve a 100% dodge rate with the augmentation of the luck stat, it wasn't unacceptable. Chapter 1408. After Heaven Robe was brought back to the Cape family by Woods, he quickly conducted an experiment. After using the lucky companion beast to augment him, his dodge rate indeed increased, but it was still far from a 100% dodge rate. However, he could already confirm that the luck stat did augment Heaven Robe's dodge rate. And Shung wasn't lying. However, as there were relatively few lucky companion beasts, the average person would hatch one after obtaining one. Therefore, the Cape family didn't have a lucky companion egg for one person to use. All they could do was buy it from the market. However, when they wanted to buy a lucky companion egg, they realized that it was almost impossible to buy companion eggs with luck stats and skills on the market. There were only a few lucky companion eggs for sale. Even if they were at the legendary or epic stage, they were priced sky high. Damn it! It must be those bastards from the family behind this. Woods cursed hatefully. We should have thought of this long ago. Since Heaven Robe has such a need, Zhou must have searched the market for lucky companion eggs long ago. It's normal for the price of lucky companion beasts to rise. Patriarch Cape thought for a moment and said, "However, as long as we can gather enough lucky equipment to allow Heaven Robe to achieve a 100% dodge rate, everything will be worth it. Go talk to the family and see if we can buy lucky companion beasts from them. We have to try our best to buy lucky companion beasts from other places. I believe the family won't sell all their lucky companion beasts to us." At this point in time, Patriarch Cape could only continue. Otherwise, the Heaven Robe that he had spent a huge sum of money to buy would be useless. It could even be said to be trash. The Heavenly Robe's defense was much weaker than an armor of the same level. Its evasion rate was not 100%, and there was no telling when one would fall for an attack while wearing it. Who would dare to use their own life to test their own luck? It was as good as useless. Now, they still believed that Heaven Robe could achieve a 100% dodge rate. After all, Zhou had relied on Heaven Robe to clear the level. This shouldn't be wrong. Their thoughts weren't wrong, but unfortunately, they didn't know that the augmentation of typical lucky equipment could only increase the dodging rate, but it couldn't reach 100%. One needed Wang Lu's invincible lucky star to achieve a true 100% dodge rate. The Cape family contacted Shung again and expressed their desire to buy a lucky companion beast. However, the price Shung offered nearly made them curse. "Adjutant, the Heavenly Robe was bought from you. The lucky companion beast should be considered a set of equipment. It's not appropriate for you to ask for such a high price, right? If this gets out, who would dare to do business with the family in the future?" Wood, who was in charge of this matter, said while suppressing his anger. Due to Woods's previous mistake, He had been temporarily abandoned by the Cape family. The purchase of a lucky companion beast was left to wood. We're all strictly following the contract. We didn't do anything shameful, and there's nothing that can't be known. Besides, there are countless people vying for something as good as the heavenly robe. I don't think you would go against your conscience and discredit it, right? And Sheng said with a smile. What was first taken aback before he understood and Sheng's meaning. He was immediately rendered speechless, and Sheng's meaning was very clear. Now that the heavenly robe was in the hands of the Cape family, if they revealed the problem with the heavenly robe, the value of the heavenly robe would plummet. It would also expose the weakness of the heavenly robe, and the Cape family would suffer. If the Cape family didn't say anything, others would still be somewhat afraid of the heavenly robe. Perhaps there would be a chance to change hands in the future. Wood had no choice but to suppress his anger and negotiate with Sheng. This was because there were too few lucky companion beasts that could be bought on the market. No matter how angry he was, he could only buy them from the Yin family. Otherwise, the heavenly robe would only be a piece of terror-grade equipment with extremely ordinary effects. Heavenly robe was sold to the Cape family? While Zhou was grinding dungeons, Wang Lu called. The companion egg has been sold? How's the price? Zhou immediately knew that the Cape family had definitely bought the lucky companion egg from Wang Lu. It's only dozens of times higher than the price I bought it for. Wang Lu answered very easily. After learning that Zhou wanted to sell the heavenly robes, she began searching the market for lucky companion eggs. Most of them were in her hands. Since you've earned so much, the debt I previously owed you should be written off, right? Zhou said with a smile. That's a separate matter. Besides, I earned it with my own abilities. Why is it considered you repaying the debt? Wang Lu said with a curl of her lips. Why are you still so greedy after earning so much? Zhou felt helpless. You've already become first on the rankings. Aren't you still working hard to advance? Wang Lu paused and asked, How's little Chan? She's still on the moon. Don't worry. I just visited her 2 days ago. She's learning from Goddess Supreme, Yin. Goddess Supreme, Yin is an impressive existence. If little Chan learns from her, there's a high chance that she will become an impressive figure in the future. Zhou had indeed visited Wang Chan before, but Wang Chan's situation wasn't as optimistic as he had said. Under Goddess Supreme Yin's hands, Wang Chan had suffered quite a bit. She had cried and clamored to return with Zhou. It wasn't easy for Zhou to allow her to continue staying there. That's good. I also hope that she will become an impressive figure. As long as she won't be plagued by bad luck in the future and can live happily, that's enough. Wang Lu also knew that Wang Chan definitely wouldn't have it easy. There was nothing in this world that could be easily succeeded. To be able to follow an expert at the level of Goddess Supreme Yin was indeed an opportunity for Wang Chan. If Wang Chan could control her abilities in the future, it would be an excellent thing for Wang Chan and the entire Wang family. By the way, when are you going to repay the debt you owe me? Don't just talk about it every time, all right? Wang Lu said. Have you had dinner? Zhou asked after some thought. Not yet. Why? Do you want to treat me to dinner? You're still in Luoyang now. It shouldn't be in time, right? As Wang Lu spoke, she suddenly heard a knock on the door. Didn't I say that there's no need to wake me up for dinner? Wang Lu said in puzzlement. There was no answer from outside the door. She continued knocking twice. I already said not today. Wang Lu opened the door as she spoke. Before she could finish her sentence, she was stunned. The person standing outside was actually Zhou. I should still be in time to treat you to dinner, right? Zhou asked with a smile. After advancing to the terror grade, with the activation of the disqualified, the Singularity Universe's teleportation accuracy was much higher. Typical teleportation only had an error of 20 to 15 kilometers. This time, Zhou's luck wasn't bad. He was only a few kilometers away from Wang Lu's house, so he quickly rushed over using teleportation. That depends on what you treat me to. I'm very picky, Wang Lu said with a smile. I'll cook personally. It should be all right, Zhou said as he took out his tools and ingredients from the chaos bead. He set up a stove in the yard and quickly made a few dishes. He even took out the sake and Sheng had prepared for him and decorated the dining table rather beautifully. Seeing Wang Lu walk over, Zhou hurriedly went over and pulled out a chair for her. Wang Lu sat down and looked at the dishes that Zhou had carefully prepared. She curled her lips and said, "Tell me, what's the matter? What's the matter? Isn't it just treating you to a meal?" Zhou said, "If you don't say it now, don't say it today. I don't like to hear nonsense while eating." Wang Lu rolled her eyes at him. "Ahem. Actually, it's really nothing much. It's just that my luck hasn't been good recently. I keep failing to synthesize when I'm gaming, so I want to take advantage of your good luck," Zhou said with a light cough. Chapter 1409. Dream on. Wang Lu said through gritted teeth. "Pretend I didn't say anything. Hurry up and eat." Zhou had no choice but to give up. In the past 2 days, Zhou had finally obtained a mutated Overlord Snake companion egg, and Sheng had also helped him collect some more suitable companion eggs. However, considering how the success rate was too low, it was very difficult to fuse Ever Victorious and Unstoppable with only one mutated Overlord Snake. If he had Wang Lu's power of luck, the success rate would be much higher. However, if Wang Lu wasn't willing, Zhou wouldn't force her. He would try fusing them when he returned. "How's the Wang family situation now? If you need help, just let me know." Zhou sat opposite Wang Lu and opened the bottle. He poured a cup for Wang Lu and himself. "It's not a problem to survive, but the Wang family hasn't found its own path. It's standing at a fork in the road and doesn't know how to proceed." Wang Lu smiled and raised her glass, clinking it with Zhou. "Let's not talk about these boring things. How did you rush up the rankings? Don't tell me it's because of heavenly robes." "I've mastered a spatial circulation skill. The effect is similar to heavenly robes. It can prevent calamity-grade bullets from injuring me," Zhou answered truthfully. "It's no wonder you don't need my invincible lucky star," Wang Lu said. "It's not that I don't need it. It's yours after all. How can I keep using it? Besides, you have to have a guarantee of safety. With Invincible Lucky Star and Heavenly Robes, you won't be injured so easily in the future," Zhou said. "How strange. You're still worried about me?" Wang Lu looked at Zhou with a faint smile. "Of course. If anything happens to you, who else can lend me luck?" Zhou said. If looks could kill, Zhou would probably have been sliced by Wang Lu's gaze 1,000 times. "I'll die. Don't come looking for me in the future. I'm not your tool." Wang Lu stood up angrily and said through gritted teeth. Zhou hurriedly pressed down on her shoulder and got her to sit down again. "Don't be angry. I didn't mean it that way. Even if you don't have the ability to use luck, I don't wish for you to be hurt. Luck is just something in passing. If you don't like it, don't lend it to me," Zhou hurriedly explained. "Humph, that's more like it." Only then did Wang Lu sit down and continue eating. The two of them chatted about their school days and reminisced about the good times of their youth. Zhou didn't mention using Wang Lu's luck ability again. He wasn't someone who liked to force things. After eating, Zhou asked Wang Lu, "You remember the accounts, right? It's all recorded in a small notebook. Don't even think of going back on your word." Wang Lu took out a small notebook from her pocket and patted it smugly. "All right, I'll cross off today's meal. I'll slowly return the rest in the future. I have to return now." Zhou packed his things and prepared to return to Luoyang. When Tianzuo wasn't in Luoyang, he couldn't leave Luoyang for too long. "Hey," just as Zhou was about to leave, Wang Lu stopped him. "What?" Zhou turned to look at Wang Lu. "Aren't you sick of eating so much meat? Have an apple to clear your stomach." Wang Lu threw a washed apple to Zhou. "I don't like apples." Zhou really didn't like apples. "Yes," Wang Lu said with widened eyes. "Why are you glaring at me? I'll eat it, all right?" Zhou took a bite. It was rather sweet. Zhou waved his hand as he ate the apple. "I'm going back. I'll return your meal next time." "I'll be waiting," Wang Lu said with a smile. Zhou directly teleported back to Luoyang. His luck wasn't too good. He was still more than 15 kilometers away from Luoyang. Thankfully, this distance was nothing to Zhou. He quickly returned to Luoyang. "Since I can't borrow Wang Lu's luck, I can only combine it myself. However, I can't have too much hope. It'll be fine as long as I can combine Ever Victorious or Unstoppable. I won't have the extravagant hope of having both skills." Zhou returned to his room, took out his phone, and placed Tyrant Behemoth into the fusion interface. Now, Tyrant Behemoth had 4 skills: piercing, laceration, armor penetration, and poison fangs. Apart from poison fangs being useless, the other 3 skills were good for increasing destructive power. Let's see if I can close Unstoppable first. Zhou placed the companion egg on it. As Sheng had helped him obtain 2 unstoppable companion eggs, he could give it 2 tries. If he could combine Unstoppable, he could try Ever Victorious again. Although he knew that the chances of success with both skills were very low, Zhou still wanted to give it a try. Otherwise, he wouldn't be willing to give up. However, even if he failed this time, there would likely be 1 skill left. If it didn't match the other companion eggs, the 2 skills wouldn't be washed away. As the unstoppable companion egg had 3 skills, Zhou didn't dare guarantee that he could combine Unstoppable the first time. All he could do was try his luck. After clicking on a fusion button, Tyrant Behemoth and the companion egg immediately glowed and fused together, leaving only Tyrant Behemoth behind. Zhou hurriedly looked at Tyrant Behemoth's skills and was immediately delighted. Tyrant Behemoth's skills now had Unstoppable. The other skills didn't change. The armor penetration, piercing, and laceration that Zhou needed hadn't been washed away. I succeeded on my first try. From the looks of it, my luck isn't bad. I have to strike while the iron is hot. Zhou placed the mutated Overlord Snake on it and clicked on the fusion button. Zhou was somewhat uneasy at that moment. It probably wasn't easy to retain both skills. Furthermore, this mutated Overlord Snake had 2 skills. Apart from Ever Victorious, it also had a Bite skill. It didn't feel like it was a useful skill. In theory, Bite might also wash away the other skills. There was still quite a bit of risk. However, with the goods in hand, Zhou couldn't feel at ease without giving it a try. As the light lit up, Zhou heart rose to his throat. It was about to jump out. When the light dissipated, Tyrant Behemoth's figure appeared again. From its appearance, it was no different from before. Zhou hurriedly looked at its information, and his mouth gaped open. Armor penetration, piercing, laceration, poisonous fangs, bite, Ever Victorious, Unstoppable. Zhou counted several times. That's right, there were a total of 7 skills. Both Ever Victorious and Unstoppable were present. It actually succeeded. It's even a 7th skill. That's great. Zhou was so happy that he nearly jumped up. It was as though he had eaten a ginseng fruit. All his pores felt indescribably comfortable. Previously, he had failed so many times. Now, not only had he succeeded, but it had also become a 7th skill. Although poisonous fangs and bite didn't seem to be of much use, it was better than nothing. Should I try fusing the bloodline again? With everything going so smoothly today, Zhou had his sights on the bloodline function again. If he succeeded, he could allow Tyrant Behemoth to have 2 life providences. Chapter 14:10. Tyrant Behemoth's life providence was infinite strength. It greatly augmented strength, making it very compatible with Tyrant Behemoth, which had absolute strength. Zhou was now thinking about what life providence he should add to Tyrant Behemoth if he could obtain 2 life providences. Was it an offensive life providence, a defensive life providence, or a support-type life providence? 4 defense-type life providences, like Undying Body and Unbreakable, they were very useful. If he could obtain them, they would be of great help to Tyrant Behemoth's survivability. However, the owners of these 2 life providences were Zhou's main companion beasts. Zhou couldn't bear to use them as bloodline materials for Tyrant Behemoth. It would be fine if he succeeded, but if he failed, it would be a huge loss. Therefore, Zhou could only choose materials from low-level companion beasts. However, a low-level companion beast life providence wasn't necessarily bad. In fact, many low-level companion beasts had very powerful life providences. However, because their levels were too low, they couldn't showcase the true might of their life providences. For example, the mutated Overlord Snake's Born Overlord was a very powerful life providence. It had an extremely powerful augmentation to one's physique, especially strength. Tyrant Behemoth was a strength-type companion beast to begin with. If it had the life providence of Born Overlord, its strength would probably break through the horizon. There was also the Yin-Yang Purple Airbell's mountain-devouring aura. Together with a glutton like Tyrant Behemoth, it was rather impressive. However, during the fusion process, Tyrant Behemoth's mountain-devouring skill was washed away by Zhou. Otherwise, it would have been a good choice. Apart from that, there was also Primordial Spore's eternal indestructibility and the Great Might Vajra Bull's supremely mighty life providence. They were both extremely powerful life providences. However, Zhou really couldn't bear to use these rare companion beasts as supplementary ingredients. They were all unique existences. It would probably be difficult to find them again after fusing them. I should search through the low-level companion beasts. Zhou looked at the various low-level companion beasts he had obtained and saw quite a number of powerful life providences. However, there weren't many that matched Tyrant Behemoth. After some consideration, Zhou still felt that Born Hegemon or Mountain River Devourer were the most suitable. However, Zhou had used the mutated Overlord companion beast to fuse his skills. He didn't have any ready-made ones on hand. Instead, the Yin-Yang Purple Airbells were useless due to their relatively low levels. I'll give it a try with the Yin-Yang Purple Airbell. After all, the success rate of the bloodline function is very low. If I fail, I'll just farm a mutated Overlord snake in the future. Zhou found the Yin-Yang Purple Airbell and placed it in the bloodline fusion column as a material before clicking on the fusion button. The Yin-Yang Purple Airbell immediately transformed into a ball of light that flew towards Tyrant Behemoth and fused into its body. Zhou didn't hold much hope either. This was because he had previously attempted the bloodline function many times to no avail. Today, he was just taking advantage of his good luck and being happy to give it a try. System notification. Tyrant Behemoth has successfully fused with the bloodline. Obtained life providence, devouring mountains and rivers. Tyrant Behemoth bloodline has been activated. Obtained talent skill. Mountain devouring, talent skill. Rampage, talent skill, Behemoth. Zhou was dumbfounded. He was stunned for a while before he reacted and hurriedly clicked Open Tyrant Behemoth's information. Tyrant Behemoth, Terror Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence, Immense Strength, Devouring Mountains and Rivers Life Soul, Violent Crown Wheel of Destiny, Absolute Strength Terror Transformation, Tyrant Strength, 82 Speed, 82 Constitution, 82 Essence Energy, 82 Talent Skill, Mountain Devouring, Rampage, Behemoth, Armor Penetration, Piercing, Laceration, Poisonous Fangs, Bite, Ever Victorious, Unstoppable, Companion Form, Boxing Glove. This is too strong. Zhou was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Tyrant Behemoth with 10 skills and 2 life providences was a unique supreme grade companion beast. It was almost impossible for it to exist in reality. Zhou couldn't wait to know how strong Tyrant Behemoth was. After opening the Yang City dungeon and entering the game, Zhou didn't get Tyrant Behemoth to transform into a glove and appear in its true form. A 100-meter-long snake, blood spirit, rushed out of the Bloodbone Temple. Tyrant Behemoth took a step forward, and its body instantly became as huge as a mountain. A claw extended like lightning and grabbed the neck of the giant snake that was charging over. The snake's originally gigantic body was like a loach in Tyrant Behemoth's claws. No matter how it struggled, it couldn't escape. The snake's body wrapped around Tyrant Behemoth's beast arm. Tyrant Behemoth's claws exerted force and snapped the snake's bones, separating the snake's head from its body. Too violent. With a thought from Zhou, sword beams shot out and struck many Bloodbone temples like a storm. Immediately, hundreds of Terror-grade blood spirits roared as they charged out. Among the blood spirits, there were quite a number of primordial behemoths. They were extremely large, but in front of Tyrant Behemoth in its behemoth form, they didn't appear big at all. It was as though ordinary behemoths were besieging the king of behemoths. No matter how he looked at it, Tyrant Behemoth looked like a super boss. Zhou watched as Tyrant Behemoth waved its claws and tore the blood spirits apart. It opened its mouth and swallowed several blood spirits. Its boss-like demeanor made him have the urge to fight the boss for equipment. They were both at the terror grade, but Tyrant Behemoth's suppression of the blood spirits was like a calamity grade suppressing a terror grade. It looked like a creature of the same level. This fellow is too strong. I'm so lucky today. I'll try again. Joven got Tyrant Behemoth to torture the blood spirits while he activated his bloodline function. He wanted to see if he could fuse a life providence with Imprisoned Dragon. Imprisoned Dragon had an unbreakable life providence. If he obtained a life providence like Diamond Body, its defense would definitely rise to another level. Joven made up his mind and used the Golden Warrior as a material to use the Bloodline skill on Imprisoned Dragon. Bloodline Fusion failed. Bloodline Fusion failed. Bloodline Fusion failed. However, Joven failed to successfully fuse with the Bloodline after several attempts and using up all the Golden Warrior companion beasts he had stored. Why is my luck gone just like that? Joven was somewhat depressed. Tyrant Behemoth was besieged by a group of bloodlines. As it was too large, it couldn't take care of its surroundings. Many blood spirits pounced on it and bit it. Joven was just about to help Tyrant Behemoth when he suddenly saw a sanguine glow from Tyrant Behemoth's body. A blood-colored crown appeared on its head as it opened its mouth and sucked in. The surrounding blood spirits were sucked into its bottomless, deep-sea mouth. Without even chewing, it swallowed them into its stomach. Freak! Despite being at the terror grade, Joven felt that Tyrant Behemoth's destructive power was even stronger than his. Chapter 14:11. Finally, Tyrant Behemoth's massacre alarmed the Kuei Ox in the Stone Temple. The Stone Temple's door opened and the Kuei Ox lay inside. It opened its mouth and roared at Tyrant Behemoth. Rumble. Tyrant Behemoth opened its mouth in an attempt to charge forward and devour the Kuei Ox. Unfortunately, before it could reach the Kuei Ox, its body was shaken by the thunderous roar. Blood gushed out as all its bones shattered. It only rushed to the front of the Stone Temple before Tyrant Behemoth's body exploded. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. In the end, it failed to withstand the Kuei Ox's sound wave attack. After all, it's still a terror grade body. Compared to a true calamity grade, its body's strength and defense are much weaker. However, Tyrant Behemoth's attack strength should be infinitely close to the calamity grade. With its glove form, I should have a chance of killing the Kuei Ox. Joven wasn't depressed because Tyrant Behemoth wasn't the Kuei Ox's match. He used a drop of blood to respawn Tyrant Behemoth in-game and entered Yang City again. This time, Joven made Tyrant Behemoth wear a glove on his hand. A black glove wrapped around Joven's palm. To his surprise, Tyrant Behemoth's glove form had changed. It was somewhat different from before. In the past, there were 2 horn-like spikes at the front of the fist, but now the spikes had become 4, but they were much smaller. They extended from the knuckles like 4 fangs. With Joven's punch, the 4 fangs would first pierce into the enemy's body. Furthermore, the fangs were blackish-red in color. They looked like they contained poison, likely caused by poison fangs. Joven charged forward and alarmed the Kuei Ox again. The Kuei Ox let out a roar from the Stone Temple, but unfortunately, it couldn't injure Joven. With the small heavenly cycle killing array protecting him, even the terrifying sound wave attack was trapped in the circular space, unable to reach Joven. When the Kuei Ox came out of the Stone Temple, Joven took the opportunity to teleport to its back after it let out a roar. He struck its neck with the Tyrant Glove. Typical creatures' skulls were relatively hard, but their necks were relatively weak. With Joven's punch, the 4 fangs at the front of the Tyrant Glove tore through the Kuei Ox's skin and pierced into its flesh. Roar! The Kuei Ox let out a pained roar towards the sky. At the same time, it unleashed a sonic attack. However, Joven had already teleported far away. After the Kuei Ox's sound wave passed, he teleported behind the Kuei Ox again and punched its neck. Bang! Joven's figure flickered as he constantly disappeared and reappeared around the Kuei cow. His fist, which was wrapped in the Tyrant Glove, struck the Kuei Cow's neck again and again. Although Kuei kept releasing sound wave attacks, it was unable to injure Zhou, one with a minor heavenly cycle killing array. All it could do was passively take a beating. Looking at it from a certain perspective, the minor domain killing formation was far more useful compared to Tian Yi's evasion ability. Tian Yi could only evade single target attacks, while the minor domain killing formation could even block area of effect attacks. However, if the strength of the attacks exceeded the limits of what the minor domain killing array could endure, the minor domain killing array would not be as useful as Tian Yi's 100% evasion rate. Both had their own pros and cons. The Tyrant Glove's attack power was indeed enough to injure Kuei Ox, but it wasn't easy to kill it in a few punches. Zhou originally imagined that with Kuei Ox's self-healing ability, killing it would take more time, but he soon realized that the wound caused by the fangs at the front of the Tyrant Glove was constantly bleeding black blood. Kuei Ox's self-healing ability seemed to have been greatly reduced. Its self-healing speed couldn't keep up with Zhou Wen's injuries. Kuei Ox's neck was already riddled with holes, and many of its bones had fractured. In its rage, it let out a thunderous roar that surged through the entire Yang City dimensional zone. Unfortunately, it was still unable to break through Zhou Wen's minor heavenly cycle killing formation. After it roared, Zhou Wen teleported behind it again and punched the back of its mangled neck. Crack! Kuei Ox's neck bone, which had already fractured in many places, couldn't withstand the force any longer. It snapped and its head drooped down. Even so, Kuei Ox didn't die. It leaped up angrily with one foot, hoping to use its body to ram Zhou Wen. Unfortunately, it couldn't touch Zhou Wen when it was healthy, much less now that its neck was fractured. It couldn't even make a sound. Zhou Wen constantly teleported and bombarded it. After more than half an hour, Kuei Ox's body finally collapsed. Then, there was a series of clanging sounds as several crystals dropped. Holy SH**T. It's a huge hit. Zhou Wen was immediately overjoyed. Zhou Wen took a cursory glance and saw that there were essence energy crystals, constitution crystals, and strength crystals. Furthermore, their values exceeded 100. Among them, a crystal with a Kuei Ox shadow was the most eye-catching. It's a pity that no companion eggs dropped. Zhou Wen picked up the Kuei Ox skill crystal, but he didn't pick up the other stat crystals himself. Instead, he got Tyrant Behemoth to take form and absorb them. Tyrant Behemoth's stats were all 82 points. After absorbing one essence energy, constitution, and strength crystal each, its stats reached 99 points. Only its speed stat wasn't satisfied. With Tyrant Behemoth's stats increased, its attack power would be stronger. It would also be beneficial for Zhou when he killed calamity creatures in the future. There was still one essence energy crystal left on the ground. After Zhou Wen absorbed it, his strength stat reached 99. Just like Tyrant Behemoth, it couldn't exceed 3 digits. Zhou Wen originally wanted to study the Kuei Ox skill crystal, but he realized that there was something else on the ground. It was a black and white stone that was inconspicuous. On it were the words Samsara Stone. A Samsara Stone has finally dropped. Only then did Zhou Wen recall that there was a Samsara function in-game. However, he had never obtained a Samsara Stone, so he didn't know what it was used for. After studying the Samsara Stone's information, Zhou Wen's expression turned odd. The Samsara Stone can only return a companion beast to its companion egg state. But what's the use? It wasn't easy for me to nurture a companion beast. If I were to return it to its companion egg state, wouldn't I have to nurture it again? It would be a complete waste of time and energy. Zhou Wen looked at the Samsara Stone in his hand and was momentarily unsure if he should be happy or worried. The items in-game couldn't be taken out. When dungeons refreshed, they would disappear. If he didn't use it now, the Samsara Stone would probably disappear. It wasn't easy for a Samsara Stone to drop. I have to give it a try. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and planned on using an unimportant companion beast to give it a try. Apart from turning a companion beast back into a companion egg, what other uses did the Samsara Stone have? Zhou Wen looked at his companion beast and chose one. He fed it the Samsara Stone. After the companion beast ate the samsara stone, its body immediately emitted a black and white glow. Like a distorted vortex, it sucked the companion beast body in and quickly shrank into a companion egg. Chapter 14:12. Zhou originally wanted to find a random companion beast to give a try, but after considering how difficult it was to drop a reincarnation stone, it didn't seem like it should be trash. After some thought, he found a relatively useful companion beast, the Great Might Vajra Bull, to experiment. After the Great Might Vajra Bull became a companion egg, Zhou looked at its stats. Giant Vajra Bull, mortal, evolvable, strength, 11 speed, 11 constitution, 11 essence energy, 11 innate skills, great divine horn, fury of thunder, indestructible Vajra, Buddha flame, companion form, mount. Although the Great Might Vajra Bull was at the mythical stage previously, it didn't have any evolvable stats. Now that it has an evolvable stat, it has a chance of breaking through to the mythical stage in the future. So that's what the reincarnation stone does. Zhou thought for a moment and felt that the samsara stone might not only have such an effect. Perhaps there were other effects he couldn't see. After all, the Great Might Vajra Bull had become at the mortal stage. There were many things he couldn't tell. However, a mortal companion beast with 4 skills was considered the best of the best at the mortal stage. After hatching the Great Might Vajra Bull again, Zhou began studying the Kuei Bull Skill Crystal. One-legged Ox Crystal requires Sound Elemental Terror transformation. Primordial Energy 99, Constitution 99. This requirement wasn't high, but Zhou didn't have any terror transformation ability. He remembered that the previous sound-type skills required spatial powers. Why did the Kuei cow only require sound-type powers? This made him lose the possibility of absorbing it. Although he couldn't bear to part with the skill crystal, he had no choice but to throw it away since he couldn't absorb it. In any case, he already had the ability to kill the one-legged cow, and he would have the chance to farm it again in the future, so he wouldn't be too distressed. After packing up, Zhou walked towards the stone temple. With how strange Yang City was, it was definitely not an ordinary dimensional zone. Perhaps there was some peerless treasure. If there really was a treasure, it would probably be inside the stone temple. The other places were all blood and bone temples, so there shouldn't be much of a difference. Arriving in front of the stone temple, Zhou activated the minor heavenly cycle killing array as he stood at the door and looked inside. The furnishings in the ancient temple were very simple. There were only simple furnishings such as stone tables and stone tables. The ornaments and utensils inside were also basically made of stone. However, there was only a bronze cauldron placed on the stone platform. It looked out of place with the other stone tools around it. Zhou carefully observed the bronze tripod and saw that it was engraved with images of mountains and beasts. The mountains and beasts looked somewhat familiar, as though he had seen them somewhere before. Could this be the 9-province cauldron? Zhou thought of the legend regarding Yu the Great. After Yu the Great conquered the flood, he established the first hereditary dynasty in the history of the Eastern District, Xia. Therefore, Yu the Great was also known as Xiaoyu. All the feudal vassals fought to present gifts and gathered all the copper in the world in Yang City. Yu the Great melted all the copper in the world into one furnace and cast the 9 prefectures cauldron. He established the 9 prefectures cauldron and completed an unprecedented feat. This was Yang City, and there was such a bronze tripod in the stone temple. Furthermore, according to what Zhou knew, every 9-province tripod cauldron was engraved with the state's mountains, rivers, and exotic beasts. The pattern on the bronze cauldron looked rather familiar. It was likely a famous mountain beast. However, as the engravings were rather abstract, Zhou couldn't match it. However, there were 9 9-province tripods. Zhou looked around the stone temple a few times, but there was only one cauldron. He didn't discover the other 8 cauldrons. If it's really the 9-province tripod cauldron, it should be a huge treasure. Zhou carefully walked into the ancient temple with a minor heavenly cycle killing array. Truth Listener constantly scanned the stone temple, but didn't discover anything abnormal. Zhou encircled the stone temple with a minor heavenly cycle killing array, but he didn't trigger any danger. Strange, could it be that there's only one calamity-grade Kuei in Yang City? Zhou was very suspicious. Although a calamity-grade Kuei was already very strong, Yu the Great had killed so many monsters from the classic of mountains and seas. He had so many blood spirits, and this was his lair. There shouldn't be only one calamity-grade creature guarding it. I remember now. It said that Xiaoyu moved the capital away from Yang City. Could it be that the other 8 cauldrons were moved away as well? Only this cauldron and a guarding Kuei were left behind? Zhou guessed as he reached out to touch the bronze cauldron. Regardless of whether this bronze cauldron was the 9-province tripod cauldron or not, it was definitely extraordinary for it to appear in such a place and be consecrated in the stone temple. Zhou carefully touched the bronze cauldron, but when his fingertips reached the bronze cauldron, he didn't touch anything. His fingertips pierced through it. Zhou was first taken aback before he reacted. He reached out to touch the bronze cauldron a few more times, but the bronze cauldron was like a phantom. His arm shuttled through it without touching it at all. This bronze cauldron and the stone saber on the fire god platform should be the same type of item. I can only touch it in reality. Zhou looked at the bronze cauldron with a complicated expression. Zhou had seen a few similar items before. They were all impressive items. Even the Arch wanted the stone saber on the fire god platform. Unfortunately, not everyone could pull it out. Zhou had only been able to pull the stone saber after cultivating the Human Emperor Sutra. Without cultivating the Human Emperor Sutra, it was impossible for him to pull it out no matter how strong he was. Although I know that these items are treasures, they should be used to suppress dimensional zones. If I really take them away, I'm afraid it will immediately cause chaos, Zhou thought. He even guessed that if he really took the bronze cauldron away, would the Bloodbone temples in Yang City become true creatures of the classic of mountains and seas? If that were the case, anyone who came would die. Not to mention Luoyang, the entire Federation would be doomed. A true creature of the classic of mountains and seas was definitely not something those blood spirits could compare with. Forget it. It's best not to cause trouble. Zhou gave up on the idea of going to Yang City in reality to retrieve the cauldron. After circling the stone temple a few more times, he didn't find anything good. All he could do was leave the Yang City dungeon and continue grinding other dungeons. In a hall in the Holy Land, many saints were kneeling on the ground. On the throne in the hall sat a figure dressed in holy armor and surrounded by holy light. He looked like a holy god. However, the helmet and visor covered his face, preventing one from seeing his appearance. One could only feel his holiness and strength, making one involuntarily worship him. The Venus companion beast has to be owned by the Holy Land. Who is willing to bring it back? The holy godlike expert said indifferently as he swept his gaze across the group of saints. We are willing to go. All the holy disciples raised their heads and left. Only one holy disciple remained kneeling on one knee with his head lowered, not saying a word. The saint's gaze landed on the saint as he asked with interest, Shao, are you unwilling? It's not that I'm unwilling, but that I can't. Shao Ran lowered his head, but his tone was neither servile nor overbearing. If I say you can, you can. The saint stood up and walked down the jade platform. She came in front of Shao and extended her right palm. She placed it in front of Shao and said, Do you believe me? Yes. Only then did Shao raise his head. His eyes were firm as he extended his right hand and placed it in the saint's palm. A strange light rose from between their palms. Chapter 14:13. Zhou held a metal ball in his hand and was taking pictures with his phone. This metal ball was a reward that had flown out of the Golden Palace after he cleared the Venus dimensional zone. He heard that it was a companion egg. However, when Zhou tried incubating it, there was no reaction at all. He used his phone to take a picture of it, but there was no reaction. He couldn't put it in game, nor could he see its information. Is this really a companion egg? Zhou was somewhat doubtful. However, it was said that every creature that passed could obtain a metal ball. Only the final victor would obtain a Venus companion beast. Although the other metal balls would also incubate companion beasts, their level and quality were difficult to guarantee. They might have a good level, but they might also be very low-level companion beasts. If this is really a companion egg, it's impossible for the mysterious phone to not have any reaction to it. Furthermore, it's still first place. It's just a difference in order. It's unlikely that Venus will be able to tell who's first place. I can give the Venus companion egg to him. After some thought, Joan felt that the metal ball might not be a companion egg. It was just a carrier. Only when first place was decided would Venus inject the strongest companion beast into one of the metal balls. Of course, this was only Joan's guess. After putting away the metal ball, Joan was just about to grind when he suddenly felt a strange heat coming from his body. After carefully sensing it, he realized that the heat was coming from Tai Sui. Tai Sui has advanced? Joan was delighted. On careful look, Tai Sui had indeed completed its evolution. He used his phone to look at Tai Sui's information. It had indeed advanced to the Terror grade. Tai Sui, Terror grade, evolvable, life providence. Fate violates Tai Sui life soul. 12 Tai Sui, God's wheel of destiny. Longevity, species terraform. God Tai Sui strength. 82 speed. 82 constitution. 82 essence energy. 82 talent skill. Earth escape companion form. Mimicry. Apart from the addition of a terror form, there didn't seem to be much change. After summoning Tai Sui, it still looked white and tender. It was like a white rubber ball that rolled and jumped on the ground. Those who didn't know would think that it was a child's toy ball. They would never have imagined that it was a terror grade companion beast. Tai Sui's defense isn't bad, and its self-healing ability is extremely strong, but its attack power is too weak. Apart from being very effective against microorganisms, it doesn't have much lethality against slightly larger creatures. Could this Tai Sui divine skill also target microorganisms? Joan ordered Tai Sui to use its terror transformation. Just as Joan was thinking about how different Tai Sui in its terror form would be, he saw Tai Sui's body emit golden light. How blinding! Even Joan had no choice but to cover his eyes with his hands. The light was just too blinding. Joan thought to himself, from the looks of it, there should be a huge change after Tai Sui's terror transformation, right? Don't tell me I'm going to turn into a human? What would he look like if he transformed into a human? From its original appearance, it should be fair and chubby even if it transformed into a human. Perhaps it's a fat kid. That's not right. Its terror transformation is God Tai Sui. To be called a god, it should be a very mighty existence, right? From the looks of this golden light, it might be a handsome deity wearing golden armor. As Joan thought to himself, the golden light on Tai Sui's body gradually dimmed. Soon, it completely vanished, revealing Tai Sui's true body. Joan took a careful look and nearly vomited blood. Tai Sui was still in the form of a fair and chubby ball. Ignoring the fact that it had transformed into a human, even its size hadn't changed. Joan circled Tai Sui a few times and finally realized that there was an additional golden symbol on Tai Sui's body. Joan didn't recognize the symbol. It felt like a musical note, but it wasn't exactly the same. Attack. After entering the Chess Mountain dungeon, Joan got Tai Sui to attack and see what changes there were after its terror transformation. Although its appearance hadn't changed much, it might have become very powerful internally. The golden symbol might be able to emit terrifying lasers. Upon receiving Zhou Wen's order, Tai Sui immediately jumped up with all its might and charged towards a group of false immortals on Deer Terrace Pavilion. Bam! 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 Tai Sui bounced on the false immortals with all its might. Its speed was really fast, as though it was playing billiards. It bounced a few times on each false immortal. Zhou watched as Tai Sui bounced back, and the false immortals stood there motionless. He thought to himself, after Tai Sui advances, could it be that it has a strange offensive power that can kill without leaving a trace? Will I be killed as long as I touch it? If that's the case, I've made a killing. Just as he was thinking about it, the false immortals suddenly moved. They weren't dead at all. Not only did they not die, but they became even more ferocious. All of them let out strange cries as though they had gone berserk as they charged at Tai Sui. Bam! One of the false immortals sent Tai Sui flying with a kick. Holy sh*t. What the hell is this? Ignoring becoming stronger. Why do I feel like it has become weaker? Those false immortals are only fox demons and chicken spirits. At most, they are at the mythical stage. Zhou really wanted to vomit blood. He originally hoped that after Tai Sui advanced to the Terror grade, it would undergo a qualitative transformation and become an important combat force for him. However, to his surprise, this fellow became weaker the more it evolved. It couldn't even defeat ordinary lesser demons. I'm really convinced. Zhou killed the false immortal on Deer Terrace Pavilion. However, Zhou still discovered some problems. The combat strength of these false immortals seemed to be much stronger than before. He had never discovered such a situation before. Could it be that Tai Sui's terror transformation has the effect of enhancing its combat strength? But how can this effect be augmented on the enemy? Zhou thought to himself. Thankfully, although Tai Sui's offensive strength wasn't great, its body was indeed one of the best at the terror grade. After being kicked out, it wasn't injured at all and quickly bounced back. Zhou got the blood-colored avatar to touch Tai Sui, hoping to see if Tai Sui really had the effect of enhancing its combat strength. If touching it could enhance its combat strength, it would be a very good supplementary ability. When the blood-colored avatar touched Tai Sui, it immediately felt a strange force augment its body. The feeling was indescribable, as though it had been possessed by a god. Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to storm into Deer Terrace Pavilion and casually killed a group of false immortals, Nine-Headed Pheasant Spirit and Lute Spirit. He felt that his speed, strength, and other aspects had been greatly augmented. Even his skills had become more powerful. They were probably more than twice as strong as usual. Tai Sui's ability can actually enhance all aspects. It's very powerful. Zhou went from sorrow to joy as he grinned from ear to ear. Chapter 14:14. Tai Sui has the ability to enhance skills and even terror transformation. Even the companion beast equipment on me has been augmented. In this state, my speed and strength can even match that of Calamity grade. With Tai Sui's power, can I kill a Calamity on Venus? Zhou felt that he was really going to soar this time. With Tai Sui's powerful augmentation, he could definitely fight a Calamity grade head-on. He might not even be at a disadvantage. With the augmentation of Tai Sui and the disqualified, Zhou could even teleport seamlessly. The chances of finding a Calamity creature in the Venus dungeon would be much higher. The so-called seamless teleportation actually meant that there was almost no casting time between skills. With continuous teleportation, he could be in a state of teleportation all the time. It was impossible for others to attack Zhou, nor could they lock onto his location. They couldn't even see him. If the Calamity creature couldn't see him, coupled with the fact that he could quickly teleport to find a target, there was a high chance that he could find the Calamity creature. Unfortunately, Zhou had just grinded the Venus dungeon and died in the end. He could only wait for the Venus dungeon to refresh tomorrow. My darling Tai Sui, you're really outstanding. Zhou raised a fair and plump Tai Sui and felt extremely blissful. With Tai Sui by his side, he really didn't think much of ordinary calamities. To be safe, Zhou charged into Deer Terrace Pavilion with Tai Sui. He wanted to try a few more times to prevent any mistakes in his calculations. Tai Sui's abilities weren't to be trifled with. Zhou killed all the way. The terror-grade creatures that he originally needed to put in some effort to kill were now instantly killed. The exhilaration left Zhou somewhat enchanted. However, when he arrived at the 4 generals of the MO family, they were activated. Even with Tai Sui's augmentation, the blood-colored avatar was quickly surrounded and killed. Although Chun Feng had the minor domain killing array to protect him, after the 4 godlike fellows were activated, the demon general holding the umbrella opened it up, and thousands upon thousands of pearls of light shot out like a vortex, filling up the entire space. Due to that, the minor domain killing array was affected and it could no longer operate normally. Then, Zhou was surrounded to death. The four of them were all calamity-grade existences, and they were the top ones. Any one of them had very special abilities, making Zhou envious. He wished he could kill them all and have their companion eggs drop. It's no wonder that the Arch asked me to steal the beads. These four fellows are indeed ferocious. Zhou had previously stolen the beads from the umbrella, but he didn't know that they were so ferocious. He was temporarily unable to defeat the four generals of the Mo family, but Zhou had no intention of attacking them. He focused on killing the calamity creatures on Venus. As long as he could kill that calamity creature, it would only be a matter of time before a calamity companion beast dropped. When the time came, he would have the seventh bullet, allowing him to ambush and kill the four generals of the Mo family from afar. As long as I obtain the companion beasts on Venus, it will be much easier to kill calamity creatures. Although Zhou had his sights on Kuei, he had no choice but to keep it from dropping. After reviving, Zhou went to grind other dungeons before sleeping. When he woke up, the Venus dungeon had already been refreshed. You've killed me so many times. It's time for me to kill you once. Zhou entered the Venus dungeon with Tai Sui and made it enter its terror form. With a flash of golden light, Tai Sui entered its terror form as golden symbols appeared on its body. Zhou was pleased with himself. With a wave of his hand, he destroyed the metal guards. He wasn't in a hurry to use the minor heavenly cycle killing formation. After all, with Tai Sui's augmentation, the minor heavenly cycle killing formation could be completed almost instantly. There was no need for advanced preparation. This was what Zhou was most satisfied with. When the golden battle god appeared, Zhou waved his hand to kill it, but he suddenly felt that something was amiss. Zhou hadn't noticed it due to his excitement. Now that he summoned Sword Pill to kill the golden battle god, he realized that the speed at which he summoned Sword Pill was much slower. Bam! The golden battle god's bullet shot out. Zhou wanted to dodge, but his body was much slower. He failed to dodge and was hit by the bullet. What left Zhou in even more disbelief was that with his physique, he would be fine even if he took a shot. It was impossible for the frost bullet to freeze his body. However, when the frost bullet hit the blood-colored avatar, it froze his body. Zhou couldn't move at all. Bam! 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 The golden battle god continued shooting as the frost bullets hit the blood-colored avatar's body. Finally, the blood-colored avatar's body turned into ice fragments as the game screen went black. What's going on? Zhou widened his eyes as he felt extremely humiliated. Even before he advanced to the terror grade, he could have killed the golden battle god. Now that he had advanced to the terror grade, he was actually killed by the golden battle god. It was a huge humiliation. Tai Sui, there's something wrong. Zhou dripped his blood to revive and opened the game again to carefully look at Tai Sui. Soon, Zhou realized that the golden symbol on Tai Sui's body was different from yesterday's after it transformed into its terror form. At a glance, it looked very similar, but it was indeed different. Zhou tried a few more times and realized that the problem was with Tai Sui. After touching Tai Sui this time, not only did he not receive any augmentation, but his body was also greatly weakened. If he faced it head-on, he couldn't even defeat an ordinary terror-grade creature. He got Tai Sui to dispel its terror form before using it again. This time, there was no golden light, and the symbol on its body was still the same. Zhou studied it for a long time and finally realized that the symbol on Tai Sui's body wasn't fixed. After 24 hours, which was 24 hours later, when he used his terror form again, the symbol on Tai Sui's body changed. The symbol that appeared this time was different from the previous two times. After Zhou touched it, it wasn't enhanced or weakened. However, no matter what dimensional creature he killed, not even a dimensional crystal dropped, much less a companion egg. Brother, are you messing with me? Tell me honestly how many crappy symbols you have. Quickly give me the first symbol, Zhou threatened Tai Sui. Tai Sui was still jumping around, unable to understand Zhou. Zhou had no choice. Before figuring out how many symbols Tai Sui had and what each symbol was used for, he didn't dare touch it again. As Zhou was studying Tai Sui, the Rubik's Cube lit up again. The scene of Venus appeared. Someone had challenged the Venus dimensional zone again. This time, it was really a person. When Zhou saw the person, he immediately recognized him. He was Saint Xiao, but the current Xiao seemed somewhat different from the Xiao he had seen before. Zhao's entire body emitted a holy aura, as though he was a saint who had just been cleansed of his soul. Chapter 14:15. Xiao is the representative of the Holy Land. Since he has appeared in the Venus dimensional zone, he will definitely be able to clear it. However, I wonder how he will do it. Zhou secretly guessed how Xiao would clear the Venus dimensional zone. In theory, Xiao was only at the Terragrade. Only by using some special techniques could he clear the level. However, the Holy Land was the Holy Land after all. It was the only place on Earth that wasn't bound by Earth's laws. Dimensional experts could freely control their strength in the Holy Land. Although they didn't dare leave the Holy Land, the help they could give saints was unimaginable. In fact, it wasn't just Zhou. The various factions were also paying attention to the Holy Land's every move. After all, the Holy Land was the first faction to rule Earth. Although the Holy Land had lost absolute control over Earth due to the six families' overt obedience and internal strife, no one dared to underestimate the Holy Land's influence on Earth. The six families, which had gradually broken free from the Holy Land's control, still didn't dare to openly betray the Holy Land. This showed how terrifying the Holy Land was. Now, everyone wanted to know how much strength and influence the Holy Land had on Earth without the support of the six families. Under everyone's gazes, Xiao entered the Venus dimensional zone. The metal guards that appeared at the very beginning were naturally nothing to someone of Xiao Luo's level. No one thought that the metal guard would be able to cause any damage to Xiao Luo. What they really wanted to see was how Xiao Luo would deal with the calamity grade bullets. However, what happened next still surprised many people. Surprisingly, the metal guard did not attack Xiao. It was as if he was stunned. Xiao saw that the metal guard didn't move at all, but the metal guard suddenly aimed its muzzle at him. Da-da, da-da. The metal guard had smashed his own body into pieces. Is it a physical control spell or a mental control spell? Zhou was somewhat surprised. The metal guard's body doesn't look like it's being controlled. It's more likely that it's a mental control spell, and Sheng said. Are you sure? Zhou asked and Sheng. No. And Sheng shook his head with a bitter smile. Let's wait and see. Perhaps we can find some clues. The Zhang family Zhang Chunxiu and Zhang Yuji were also discussing this question, but they also didn't have an answer. In fact, the various factions were also studying and analyzing, but they also didn't come to any conclusions. Groups of Metal Guardians rushed out, but they only rushed out. Not a single Metal Guardian shot at Xiao. Next, the Metal Guards all raised their guns and pointed the muzzles at themselves. Soon, all of them succeeded in killing themselves, leaving metal fragments all over the ground. After Golden Battle God rushed out, Zhou originally imagined that Xiao wouldn't be able to pass so easily, but following that, Golden Battle God also committed suicide. At this moment, the entire Federation seemed to be in an uproar. Who is this person? Why haven't I seen it before? It's just too strong. This is too abnormal. He didn't even move his hand, and his opponents all committed suicide. Is he a god? From the looks of it, he seems to be stronger than Immortal, Tsukuyami, and Zhou. It's too early to say that he's strong. It's not a big deal to make the Golden War god commit suicide. If he can make a calamity grade creature commit suicide, then he'll be really awesome. Everyone was talking about it. Most people only knew that Xiao Luo was very strong, but no one could say how strong he was. However, when the various major powers saw the Golden War god commit suicide, they jumped in fright. Their expressions turned ugly. To be able to make a terror-grade Golden War god commit suicide, such power left anyone who truly understood it alarmed. One had to know that the strongest combat strength among humans, other than Immortal, was at the terror grade. If a Terrorgrade creature committed suicide when it saw Xiao, then Xiao alone could wipe out all the factions. It's impossible for him to be that strong, right? There must be some restrictions, Xiao Xianyue said as she looked at the Rubik's Cube screen in surprise. It looks like there aren't any restrictions. Xiao Luchuan frowned as well. Now, the Holy Land's control over the various families was weakening. It wasn't just the Xia family. The 6 families were intentionally or unintentionally trying to escape the Holy Land's control. However, seeing Xiao Luo's performance today made the fear in their hearts deepen. The 6 golden war gods were the same as the metal guard from before. All of them had committed suicide. None of the golden war gods had fired a shot at Xiao. Their bullets were all aimed at themselves. The alarms on the 6 doors sounded at the same time, snapping the bewildered people back to their senses. They stared at Xiao, wanting to know if his strength was effective against a Calamity-grade creature. They wanted to know if the Calamity-grade creature would shoot at Xiao. As though he hadn't heard the alarms, Xiao walked towards the door. He didn't walk quickly, as though he was taking a stroll. He turned a deaf ear to the ear-piercing alarms. Everyone's hearts rose and fell with his footsteps. Soon, they were shocked to discover that Xiao had already walked into the tunnel, but they didn't hear any gunshots. It can't be. He can even affect a Calamity-grade creature. Zhou Wen's expression changed. He didn't know how Xiao did it, but from the looks of it, Xiao was really terrifying, and he was undoubtedly Zhao's enemy. If Xiao were to come knocking on his door now, Zhou Wen didn't know if he could withstand Zhao's strength. If he couldn't withstand it, he would commit suicide like the Golden War gods. When that happened, everything would be over. Zhang Chuanqiu's expression turned abnormally solemn. Xiao Luchuan stood up and stared at the Rubik's Cube without saying a word, but his brows furrowed. Xiao Huan walked towards the Golden Palace step by step. Every step he took made people's hearts skip a beat. It was as if they were silently counting his steps. Many people were looking forward to the gunshot. But when Xiao arrived in front of the Golden Palace's door, he still didn't hear any gunshots. The Golden Palace's door opened, and a metal ball flew out and landed in Zhao's hand. The Rubik's Cube's image switched back to the rankings. The words Holy Disciple Xiao appeared at the top of the rankings, suppressing Zhou Wen, who hadn't been on the rankings for long. I thought there would only be 5 stars at most. Why are there 6 stars? Everyone was surprised to discover that behind the words Holy Disciple Xiao were 6 sparkling golden stars. Be it Tsukimi, Zhou Wen, Fallen, or Immortal, they had used various methods to clear the level, but they had obtained 5 stars at most. Therefore, people felt that he was at most 5 stars. However, the 6 resplendent golden stars behind Holy Disciple Xiao clearly told everyone that 5 stars wasn't the limit. He was a unique existence. Everyone, including Zhou Wen, looked at Zhao's name on the rankings with solemn expressions. Chapter 14:16. 6 star. I wonder if that Calamity Grey Gunner is dead. I didn't hear any gunshots, so he probably isn't dead. If I kill the Calamity Grey Gunner, I should have a chance of surpassing 6 star, right? Zhou Wen thought to himself. If any other human obtained first place, Zhou Wen might not have risked his life, but he couldn't tolerate someone from the Holy Land obtaining first place. Now, Zhou Wen was more vexed about how he could find the Calamity Grade Gunner. It shouldn't be difficult to kill him. What was difficult was finding him. Zhou Wen had tried many times and used all sorts of methods, but he failed to find him. That Calamity Grade Gunner very likely has an invisibility ability like the invisibility cloak. Furthermore, it's an advanced version of invisibility. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape truth listeners' eyes and ears. Or perhaps he has some ability to hide himself. Zhou Wen thought about it, but couldn't think of a way to find the Calamity Grade Gunner. In the Federation, people everywhere were discussing Xiao Qin's domineering rise to the top. After all, he was the only 6 star. It rekindled the curiosity and longing for the Holy Land. Li Xin came to Zhou Wen's side and sat on his sofa as he gloated. These people are really easily incited. Yesterday, they swore that they wanted to learn how to rear companion beasts from you. Today, they're all thinking of joining the Holy Land, he said gloatingly. And Shang said, isn't that what humans are all about? It's easy to abandon things like faith, bottom line, and morals that don't bring any benefits. Brother Shang, don't kill everyone in one fell swoop. I'm a person with morals and a bottom line. I'm different from those mortals, Li Xian immediately retorted. That's only because the benefits given to you aren't good enough. If the benefits given to you are good enough, it's hard to say, and Shang said. Brother Shang, are you doubting my character? No benefit can shake my moral bottom line, Li Xian said righteously. Is that so? Then, if your second brother is seriously injured and is bound to die, you can kill someone who has a grudge with you, but definitely doesn't deserve death. That way, your second brother can fully recover and not die. Will you kill him? And Shang asked. This? Li Xian hesitated. Another example is that your Li family has fallen into the hands of a homicidal maniac. If you don't help him steal something, he will kill your entire family. Will you steal it? And Shang asked again. Brother Shang, can you not curse me? Can you miss me a little? Li Xian said gloomily. I can think for your own good, but your enemy won't. For creatures like humans, the so-called faith and moral bottom line are relative. So if you want to have a moral bottom line, you have to think more and do more than others. Don't let yourself have the chance to break the moral bottom line. What was that saying again? If you want to be an honest official, then you have to be even more treacherous than a corrupt official. And Shang paused for a moment before saying, of course, there are also people who can maintain their beliefs and bottom lines under any circumstances. However, I think that there are extremely few saints. It's best for us ordinary people not to fall to such a state. We shouldn't test the moral bottom lines of others. That makes sense. Brother Shang, let me toast you. Li Xian seemed to agree with Shang's words. He poured a glass of wine for Shang and clinked glasses with him. What do the two of you want? Zhou Wen looked at them and asked with a frown. The two of them had been sitting here for a long time and had been talking about something that seemed to be pointing at him. He didn't know what they were up to. Nothing. Aren't we just having a casual chat? Li Xian smiled and continued asking, Old Zhou, do you have any plans on reclaiming first place? The two of you have been talking here for so long. Are you trying to get me to challenge the levels again? Zhou Wen seemed to understand something. And Shang sighed and said, humans are selfish creatures to begin with. Previously, there was the League of Defenders Immortal, and now there's the Holy Land Shao. If this continues, I'm afraid everyone will want to join the Holy Land and contract a guardian in the future, who will take those difficult paths. At this time, someone has to stand up and attract them back. I don't have that ability. Go find someone else, Zhou Wen said as he spread out his hands. He really had no choice. If he couldn't find a calamity gunner, he would at most get a 5-star like last time. It was impossible for him to get a 6-star. You can't do it, but Human Sovereign can definitely do it, and Shang said with a wink. Human Sovereign can't do it this time either. The immortal culling sword was indeed very strong, but if he couldn't find a calamity-grade gunner, it was useless no matter how strong it was. Zhou Wen suddenly sized up Li Xian and said, strange. I can understand why Shang wants me to take first place, but why do you want me to take first place? That's not right. Who do you think I am? I'm also a good person. I also want to do something for the people of the world, Li Xian said stubbornly. That's not right. This isn't like you. There must be something going on here. Zhou Wen stared at Li Xian, giving him the creeps. Don't look at me like that. It's quite scary. I really want to do something good for the people of the world, but I also want to earn some pocket money. Li Xian couldn't withstand Zhou Wen's questioning gaze and revealed his intentions. Pocket money? What do you mean? Zhou Wen asked. Seeing that he couldn't hide it any longer, Li Xian had no choice but to say, actually, it's nothing. Someone just started a bet on who will be first in the Rubik's Cube. I bet heavily on you. No, on Human Sovereign. You want me to risk my life for that bit of money? Are you still human? Zhou Wen cursed. This isn't a bit of money. After Shao came out, the odds for others have increased significantly, especially those who haven't made the rankings. Human Sovereign is one of them. If Human Sovereign can take first place in the end, I'll be able to obtain a huge sum of resources. Take note that it's resources, not money. They lose resources. They lose whatever they bet, Li Xian said. You dare to buy such a bet? Aren't you afraid that they will run away with the money? Zhou Wen frowned. They won't run. The family clan of gods opened the bet. Li Xian was very certain. You bought it too? Zhou Wen looked at Ensheng. I bought just a little, Ensheng said shyly. How much is a little? Zhou Wen pressed. 500 tons of essence crystals, Ensheng answered. That's a little. Zhou Wen was rendered speechless. 500 tons of essence crystals was probably the total amount of essence crystals Luoyang could produce. Although there was an essence crystal mine in Butterfly Valley where Zhuangzi's tomb was, there was no way to mine it. Unless it was a specific time, no one could enter. Therefore, he temporarily couldn't obtain any essence crystals from there. I really can't snatch first place now. Good luck, Zhou Wen said. It doesn't matter if you can't do it. We can, Li Xian suddenly said. Chapter 14:17. What solution do you have? Zhou Wen looked at Li Xian and Ensheng in puzzlement. Clearly, the two of them had already discussed it. Li Xian said, Actually, our family has been studying the method of clearing the level and has come up with a few solutions, but the requirements are too high. No one in our family can meet such high requirements. But if it's you, it'll be different. What solution? Zhou Wen couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush with Li Xian. Li Xian finally said straightforwardly, You can block the calamity bullet and have enough strength to kill the calamity creature. According to our family's judgment, the calamity gunner's body shouldn't be too strong, so you already have the basic conditions to kill him. Although Xiao is very strong, he can't kill the calamity gunner. You can, so you have a chance of surpassing him and obtaining first place. The family you're talking about is your second brother, Li Ma Bai, right? He sure has a good plan. You want me to risk my life while he reaps the benefits at home? Zhou Wen glared at Li Xian and said, Go back and tell your second brother not to think too much. If I could kill the calamity gunner, I would have done so a long time ago. Would it be his turn to take advantage of me? Let me finish. It's true that you have the ability, but you can't find the calamity gunner, right? Li Ma Bai has a way for you to find the calamity gunner, Li Xian hurriedly said. He has a way. What way does he have? He hasn't even been to the Venus dimensional zone. So how does he know how to find the calamity gunner? Don't tell me he's trying to scam me. Zhou Wen refused to believe it. He had been grinding Venus for so long, but he hadn't been able to find the calamity gunner. He really didn't believe that Li Ma Bai, a person who didn't even dare enter the Venus dimensional zone, could find the location of the calamity gunner. You also know that my relationship with Li Ma Bai isn't good. How can I help him scam you? This time, he really has a way for you to find the calamity gunner. Trust me. This time, meet him and listen to what he has to say. If you don't think it's possible, it won't be too late to reject him. Li Xian seemed very confident in Li Ma Bai's method. You also believe in Li Ma Bai? Zhou Wen asked Ensheng. Ensheng shook his head and said, I don't trust Li Ma Bai. I only trust the overseer. The overseer was the one who sent the news and got me to cooperate with Li Ma Bai. Are you sure it's news from Tianzhua? Zhou Wen was somewhat suspicious. It can't be wrong. Ensheng was very certain. The more Zhou Wen thought about it, the more he felt that something was amiss. He seemed to have realized something, but he lacked a certain link preventing him from connecting the dots. After something happened to Li Ma Bai's body, although he's recultivating, it will definitely take a lot of time. He won't be able to catch up so quickly. With his eyesight, it's hard to say if he can even see the silhouette of a calamity grade, let alone find a calamity grade who is good at hiding. This is definitely not something he can do. Besides, why would Tianzhua want to cooperate with Li Ma Bai? And Tianzhua should be in the Holy Land now. Why is he in contact with Li Ma Bai? Zhou Wen sorted through his thoughts for a while before his heart suddenly stirred. I got it. If all of this is true, there's definitely a missing link. This link could be an item or a person. If Tianzhua discovered the location of the calamity gunner, he should have directly told Ensheng instead of cooperating with Li Ma Bai. In that case, it's very likely that the Li family has discovered the location of the calamity gunner. However, it's unlikely that Li Ma Bai has such good eyesight, nor can he contact Tianzhua in the Holy Land. Then, The remaining possibility is that the Leaf family has someone in the Holy Land. Zhou looked at Li Xian and Ensheng thoughtfully. He couldn't believe that Li Xian and Ensheng couldn't think of this since he could think of it. However, I didn't mention it. This could only mean that this person's identity was very important. They were afraid that the Holy Land would learn of the news, so they couldn't even mention it. They could only use such hints to let Zhou know of the existence of such a person. In that case, let me meet Li Maobai first, Zhou said after exchanging looks with Ensheng. He's already waiting outside the manor. I'll get him in. Li Xian ran out. Young master, safety first. This is the last message the overseer sent. Ensheng said to Zhou in a low voice. It must be very difficult to send a message from the Holy Land, right? Zhou asked. Ensheng said, every saint has a special power. Their every word and action, even if it's something related to them, or even just mentioning them, might be sensed by the terrifying existences in the Holy Land. However, the further away from the Holy Land, the less effective this power is. Zhou knew that his guess was right. That person's name probably couldn't even be mentioned. It was best not to mention it. Then, he was likely one of the saints. Furthermore, he was the real deal, not an imposter like in Tianzhua. If such a power really exists, wouldn't in Tianzhua be easily discovered? Zhou frowned. Young master, don't worry. The overseer used a special method to successfully infiltrate the Holy Land. There's no danger for the time being. Just as Ensheng was about to say something, a voice sounded from outside. Li Xian and Li Maobai had arrived. Even if the overseer says that the Li family can be trusted, young master, you have to make your own judgment. You have to decide what you can and can't do. Don't be influenced by anyone. As long as you feel that there's a problem, no matter what anyone says, including me, don't listen. Be loyal to yourself. Ensheng whispered. Zhou nodded. Li Xian had already brought Li Maobai in. After Li Maobai entered, his gaze didn't land on Zhou. Instead, he looked at Ensheng and said, Can I have a private chat with Zhou? Of course. Ensheng led Li Xian out and closed the door before activating the room's defense system. I never expected to meet you again in such a place, Li Maobai said with a smile as he sat down on the sofa without standing on ceremony. Just say what you have to say. Zhou wasn't interested in chatting with Li Maobai. Li Maobai didn't mind either. His body gradually changed as his eyes turned whiter and whiter. His black pupils became smaller and smaller before finally disappearing completely. At that moment, Li Maobai's eyes were only white. Furthermore, they were a little frightening, even more terrifying than a blind person's eyes. Mythical fluid? Zhou frowned slightly. Li Maobai's aura was a little strange. It seemed to be the result of using mythical fluid to advance, but it also seemed a little different. Mythical fluid made from the South District Calamity-grade creature, God's Eye, Li Maobai said. You have the ability to kill a Calamity-grade creature? Zhou frowned. It was killed during its advancement to the Calamity grade. When it was made into mythical fluid, it could be considered a Calamity grade or not. I haven't been able to fully unleash the power of the gods. I'm mythical fluid. I'm only at the mythical stage now, Li Maobai answered. Li Maobai didn't say that he had killed God's Eye, but Zhou could roughly guess that it was the undercover saint. My gods, I can help you find the location of the Calamity Gunner, Li Maobai continued. You want to clear the level with me? Zhou asked Li Maobai. No. According to my judgment, if two creatures clear the level together, the score will be lower than 1. If you want to surpass Xiao, you can only clear the level alone. Li Maobai's answer surprised Zhou. Then how will you help me find a Calamity Gunner? After entering the Venus Dimensional Zone, it's impossible to contact the outside world, Zhou said. Therefore, you have to bring my eye with you. As Li Maobai spoke, he extended his finger and stabbed it into his eye. Blood immediately flowed out like a blooming flower. Chapter 14:18. Zhou watched helplessly as Li Maobai dug out his pair of eyeballs. The jade-like snow-white eyeballs were held in Li Maobai's palm. His hand was covered in blood, and there were only bloody holes left in his eye sockets. However, Li Mabai's expression was as calm as ever. It was as though what he had just dug out wasn't his pair of eyeballs, but something unimportant. I haven't agreed to it, right? Can you still put your eyes back in? Zhou said in surprise. I can't, Li Mabai said indifferently. You will go, not because of the eyes in my hand, but because you are going to go anyway. Zhou fell silent for a moment before asking Li Mabai, is it worth it? Li Mabai was right. He had wanted to go anyway, but he hadn't gone because he couldn't find the Calamity Gunner. Whether it's worth it or not depends on what angle you look at it from. From my point of view, it's worth it. Li Mabai extended his palm that held the two eyeballs in front of Zhou. I haven't been using the eyes of Ghost God mythical fluid for long, so I absorbed very little energy. Most of the eyes of Ghost God mythical fluid's power is hidden in these eyes. The pure white is the Ghost Eye, and the red dot is the God Eye. When the Ghost God Eye meets, all creatures within a 5-kilometer radius will find it difficult to hide. Their location will definitely be discovered. When the time comes, the eyes of Ghost God will naturally guide you. However, remember that the eyes of Ghost can only be used once. After using it, the power will go out of control. If you can't control it when the time comes, destroy it. Why are you doing these things? Zhou didn't understand why Li Mabai was doing this. Even if Xiao obtained first place, it wouldn't affect the Li family. Why was there a need to work so hard? Because I don't wish to be forced to touch my bottom line one day, so I can only do something in advance. Li Mabai got up and left. His words were clearly a continuation of what Li Xian and Ensheng had previously said. The blood in Li Mabai's eyes had already coagulated and stopped bleeding. However, the eyes that he had lost couldn't grow back. I'll send you. Zhou held the eyes of Ghost God and wanted to help Li Mabai lead the way. There's no need. I just don't have eyes, Li Mabai said indifferently as he walked out of the room. You're your eyes? What happened? When Li Xian saw Li Mabai come out and discover his bloody eye sockets, his expression immediately changed. He pointed at Li Mabai's eye sockets and spoke incoherently. I gave it to Zhou. Li Mabai answered as he walked, seemingly unconcerned. That's not what you said previously. You said that you would challenge the level with old Zhou. Li Xian shouted excitedly. You're still so naive, isn't it obvious? I lied to you. Li Mabai walked towards the entrance of Overseer Manor without looking back. Losing his eyes didn't seem to affect his movements too much, but looking at his back that was still ramrod straight, it felt a little desolate. F asterisk king, F asterisk CKU. Li Xian's face contorted as he wanted to curse, but he didn't know who to curse. Finally, he slapped himself in the face, causing his face to swell. However, his physique instantly healed his face. It's not your fault. Even without you, a person like him will eventually do it if he wants to. No one could stop him. Ensheng understood Li Xian's inner struggle and patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. I'm going back. Li Xian shook his head and left Overseer Manor dejectedly. When Ensheng returned to his room, Zhou was holding the pair of Ghost God eyes in his hand. Is Li Mabai an enemy or a friend? Zhou looked at Ensheng and asked with a complicated expression. I don't know. Ensheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. I can't see through Li Mabai either. Even the Overseer never dares to underestimate him. Young master, you have to be careful. Zhou nodded and put away the pair of Ghost God eyes. He had the ability to protect himself, so he could try to see if the Ghost God eyes were useful. Even if they were useless, he had more than enough to protect himself. However, Zhou didn't plan on going now. He still wanted to wait until the soul reflection mirror advanced to the calamity grade before challenging the level. Furthermore, Li Mabai had also said that the Ghost God eyes could only be used once, but he didn't need to use them immediately. Zhou needed to choose a suitable opportunity. What was Li Mabai trying to do? Zhou was puzzled, but he couldn't figure out the crux of the matter. According to Zhou's recent observations, the 7-colored light emitted by the soul reflection mirror was converging. It was likely about to advance to the calamity grade. It would definitely advance in 3 to 5 days at most. Zhou originally wanted to wait a few days, but after a day, he couldn't wait any longer. That night, the Rubik's Cube suddenly lit up. People imagined that someone had barged into the Venus dimensional zone again, but when they saw the scene on the Rubik's Cube, they realized that it wasn't the case. There were no other creatures appearing on the Rubik's Cube. There was only a countdown of 72 hours. Beside it was the ranking. Anyone could tell that this was the last 72 hours. The Venus companion beast would choose its owner after 72 hours, and its owner was naturally the one ranked first on the Rubik's Cube ranking. 72 hours. Can the soul reflection mirror make it in time? Zhou wasn't sure either. He could only wait and see. If he really couldn't wait, he could only try his luck with the ghost god eye. Just as Zhou was thinking, he saw the scene on the Rubik's Cube change. It returned to outside the Venus dimensional zone, and a figure was already standing at the entrance. It was none other than the Fallen who had previously cleared the level and obtained a ranking. The Fallen challenged the level again. This time, not only did he flip open the black book, but the pair of angel wings on his back also emitted a terrifying glow, making him look like a demon god that had descended. All creatures that touched the light would instantly turn to dust. Even the Golden Battle God was no exception. Calamity-grade bullets had already turned to dust while they were still in the air. The Fallen turned the 7th sure-kill bullet into dust in an extremely domineering manner. At the same time, he walked up to the Golden Palace. However, he only obtained 5 stars this time. Although he had 1 more star than the last time and was ranked 2nd, squeezing Zhou 1, Immortal, and Tsukumi down, he ultimately failed to obtain 6 stars. With such terrifying strength, he actually can't obtain 6 stars. From the looks of it, Zhao's 6th star is really powerful. This time, the Venus companion beast will most likely end up in Zhao's hands. After all, he came from the Holy Land. The Holy Land is still strong. I'm afraid no one can produce 6 stars again. Everyone discussed. Even such a powerful calamity-grade creature couldn't surpass Zhao's ranking. From the looks of it, Zhao's first place was already secured. No humans challenged again. Even immortals didn't appear. They probably knew that it was difficult for them to reach 6 stars. It was useless even if they went up, so they gave up. Half a day passed. At noon, the Rubik's Cube finally moved again. Tsukuyomi's figure appeared in the Venus dimensional zone again. Chapter 1419. Zhou, when carefully sized up Tsukuyomi, and saw that her temperament was becoming more and more serene and mysterious. The moonlight was hazy like a veil of clouds. Even though he couldn't see it clearly, he couldn't help but be attracted by it. He almost couldn't move his eyes away from her. The more he couldn't see clearly, the more he wanted to see it clearly. Tsukuyomi seems to have become stronger. Zhou, one's current eyesight, was no longer comparable to before. With the augmentation of the disqualifier and the enhanced senses bestowed upon Zhou, one by Brahma, he could sense things much stronger than ordinary Terra-grade creatures. He wasn't much weaker than some Calamity-grade creatures. Although Tsukuyomi hadn't used her strength, just the change in her temperament made Zhou feel that she had definitely improved significantly. That's strange. How did she level up? What in the universe can improve her? Zhou thought to himself. Up to now, Zhou's understanding of the universe was still too little. Apart from guessing that every planet might be a companion egg, the universe was still a mysterious unknown to Zhou. Why did the calamity creatures on Earth head to the universe the moment they were born? Why did a powerful calamity creature like Tsukuyomi feel reverence for the universe and might even die an untimely death? Up to now, Zhou hadn't figured out this problem. At that moment, Tsukuyomi had already entered the Venus dimensional zone. Before the metal guard could shoot at her, a white monster suddenly appeared out of thin air and bit off its head. The front half of the monster's body resembled a white dog, but the back of its front limbs was like a coiled snake. It looked extremely strange. After biting off the metal guard's head, it directly swallowed the metal guard's energy core and disappeared. All of this happened in just a few moments. That's how deity from Ghost Parade, right? When Zhou had previously studied the legend of Tsukuyomi in Ghost Parade, He had learned a lot about Ghost Parade in Tsukuyami's mythical system. He immediately recognized what it was. The 6 doors opened and groups of metal guards rushed out. However, before they could shoot, Hound Deity's figure flashed again and bit off the head of a metal guard. This time, it wasn't only Hound Deity that appeared. Hashiheim, who Joan had already seen before, appeared along with a wooden bridge and connected to a door. After the metal guards appeared from the door and walked onto the wooden bridge, they seemed to have lost their minds. They didn't shoot and walked towards Hashiheim as though they had turned silly. Hashiheim stood on the bridge, wearing a floral kimono and holding a paper umbrella. Although her face couldn't be seen due to the umbrella, her beautiful figure was enough to tempt one. When a metal guard walked in front of Hashiheim, she finally turned around. The moment she turned around, the paper umbrella in her hand flew up. Her face was like a ghost, with sharp teeth, blood-red eyes, and sharp claws. Her face was as white as powder, and there were even tears of blood at the corners of her eyes. In the next moment, the ghoul-like Hashiheim moved like a ghost. Wherever her sharp claws and hands went, she dug out the energy sources of the metal guards and crushed them to pieces. Ghosts appeared and disappeared as groups of metal guards were slaughtered. There was no need for Tsukuyami to do anything. After the golden battle god appeared, he failed to withstand the attacks of the ghosts. He wanted to fire, but a ghost-like ghost appeared on him as though it had possessed him. It made the golden battle god lose control of his body, preventing him from pulling the trigger. Bam! A ghost carrying a huge hammer smashed down, shattering the golden battle god's body and shattering his energy source. The 6 golden gods of war were like 6 helpless orphans in the midst of the monsters that appeared and disappeared from time to time. They were quickly killed. Tsukuyami walked towards the tunnel as ghosts constantly appeared beside her, like guards escorting a princess. Everyone exclaimed in delight. They originally wanted to see how Tsukuyami would deal with Calamity-grade bullets, but they didn't know if those ghosts could withstand Calamity-grade bullets. However, to everyone's surprise, Tsukuyami, who was escorted by 100 ghosts, didn't suffer any Calamity-grade bullets. Even when she arrived in front of the Golden Palace, not a single bullet appeared. Goddess Tsukuyami is too strong. Even the Calamity Gunner is frightened. He doesn't even dare fire. In that case, I wonder if the magic cube's evaluation is low or high. Without experiencing the test of Calamity-grade bullets, the score shouldn't be too high, right? T. Goddess Tsukuyami is invincible. Even the Calamity Gunner is so frightened that he doesn't dare fire. How can her score not be high? I think she's definitely going to reach 6 stars, and her ranking will be higher than Zhao's. Everyone discussed, but this time, the door to the Golden Palace didn't open, nor did the metal ball fly out. However, when the magic cube switched back to the rankings, the golden stars behind Tsukuyami's name changed from 5 to 6. However, her rankings still didn't surpass Zhao. She was only ranked 2nd. With such powerful strength, she still can't surpass Zhao? Zhou was somewhat alarmed. He could clearly tell that Tsukuyami's abilities had definitely improved greatly. Under such circumstances, she still couldn't surpass Zhao's ranking. This meant that Zhao's strength was more terrifying than Zhou imagined. With a thought, Zhou used the Singularity Universe's interstellar teleportation ability to arrive on Venus. As the teleportation's accuracy was much better than before, Zhou appeared not far from the Venus dimensional zone and saw Tsukuyami, who was about to leave. Tsukuyami also sensed someone appear. She turned her head and stood there with a smile when she realized that it was Zhou. Tsukuyami, who was dressed in white, looked especially beautiful and otherworldly in the dark universe. Her entire body seemed to emit an intoxicating halo. Tsukuyami, can we have a chat? Zhou asked. No. The corners of Tsukuyami's mouth curled up slightly as a sly look appeared in her eyes. Just as Zhou was feeling depressed, he saw Tsukuyami walk in front of him and say with a smile, "It's boring to just chat. Why don't we do something else?" With that said, Tsukuyami extended her slender and fair fingers and pressed them on Zhou's forehead. Instantly, she vanished with Zhou. Zhou originally believed that his spatial abilities were already very strong, but he realized that Tsukuyami's spatial abilities were even more exquisite. During the spatial teleportation process, Zhou almost didn't feel the fluctuations or tremors brought about by spatial teleportation. Chapter 14:20. When Zhou landed on the ground, he felt his feet go soft, as though he had stepped on something very soft. He hurriedly flew up and stabilized his body. Only then did he look down and see that there was a large meteorite below him. The meteorite was shaped like a bowl that was placed diagonally, and in the depression of the meteorite was a large soft bed. At that moment, Tsukuyami was already lying on the huge bed. Her body was slanted, and she supported her cheek with one hand as she looked at Zhou with a faint smile. "Is this where you live?" Zhou looked around curiously and saw that this was an asteroid belt. There were strange-looking meteorites everywhere. Apart from Tsukuyami and the bed, there were no signs of life. "That's right. What do you think?" Tsukuyami said. "The environment is a little bad. Why don't you find a better place?" Just as Zhou said that, Tsukuyami suddenly waved her sleeve. The sleeve transformed into a white ribbon that wrapped around Zhou's body and pulled him down. Zhou fell onto the bed, and his expression changed slightly. He wanted to ask Tsukuyami what she was doing, but before he could say a word, Tsukuyami leaned against him and covered his mouth with her hand. "Don't speak." Tsukuyami's pink lips were almost pressed against Zhou's ear. Her voice was so soft that Zhou almost couldn't hear it. Her breath tickled Zhou's ear. Zhou didn't sense Tsukuyami's true strength, so he didn't retaliate. He lay there quietly and used Truth Listener to probe his surroundings. Soon, Zhou discovered a problem. Not far from the asteroid belt, there was a huge exotic beast swimming around. The exotic beast looked like a devil ray, but it was many times larger than the devil ray on Earth. Furthermore, its body was transparent like crystal. There were thin lines that emitted blue light in its body, like a human's blood vessel network. Zhou sensed a terrifying aura from the strange creature and immediately held his breath. Zhou didn't dare act recklessly against something that even Tsukuyami feared. The exotic beast swam through the asteroids. There were a few times when it was less than 1,000 meters away from the asteroid they were on. Tsukuyami remained motionless, as though she had been petrified. Zhou could only follow suit. After a while, the exotic beast gradually left, disappearing into the distant group of meteorites. "What's that?" Zhou could only sense that it was a dimensional creature, but he didn't know what species it belonged to. "A calamity-grade creature. Its rank is much higher than mine. If it discovers us, we might become its food." Tsukuyami lay beside Zhou with one hand supporting her cheek. Her other hand was still pressed against Zhou's chest like before, with no intention of getting up. "Level." Zhou was somewhat puzzled. Although they are both calamity-grade supers, there is a difference in strength. There is a huge difference in strength between levels, and their domain power will also have a qualitative leap, Tsukuyami said. "What are their ranks?" Zhou hurriedly asked. He knew too little about the calamity grade, so he could take this opportunity to learn more. Perhaps he could find a way to advance to the calamity grade. The human world, hell, and heavenly realm correspond to 3 different levels of domain powers. "I'm still at the human domain level," Tsukuyami replied. "There are no calamity grade supers among us humans, right? Why would a calamity grade domain be named after the human world?" Zhou was puzzled. According to what he knew, there was no calamity that was purely advanced by humans. Ignoring calamity, he had never even heard of a pure human mythical. "How would I know?" This is the ancient division of calamity ranks. If you want to know, you can go back countless years and find the answer yourself. Tsukuyami continued with a smile. "A calamity creature like me, who has just been born on Earth, can't even reach the human stage. I'm a pure calamity rookie. I'm only at the human stage now, but there are calamity creatures at the hell stage and the heaven stage in the universe. I'm far inferior. Why are there so many powerful calamity creatures in the universe?" Zhou couldn't help but frown. A portion of them came from Earth, and a portion came from other planets, Tsukuyami said. Just like the dimensional creatures on Venus? However, the dimensional creatures on Venus won't leave Venus. The so-called Venus companion beasts have to form contracts with other creatures before they can leave Venus. Zhou found it unbelievable that so many calamity-grade creatures had formed contracts. It's true that a contract is needed, but there are also situations where a contract isn't needed. For example, when a planet's lifespan reaches its end, which means that the companion beasts inside have already grown to their limits. Even if there's no need to form a contract with someone, they will automatically appear because of the planet's destruction. That way, the companion beasts that appear will become ownerless. Furthermore, typically speaking, such companion beasts are very strong due to the long period of growth. Most of them are at the heaven stage when they are born. Of course, there are also planets that are accidentally destroyed before reaching the end of their lifespans. Then, the companion beasts that come out of them will be weaker. After a pause, Tsukuyami continued, of course a portion of them are contracted. However, only creatures from Earth can contract companion beasts. Those fellows from the dimension need to go through the bodies of Earth creatures if they want to contract companion beasts in the universe. Wait, in other words, that powerful calamity creature was actually a companion beast? Zhou suddenly reacted. That's right. Tsukuyami nodded slightly. Then I should be able to contract it, right? Zhou asked with widened eyes. If he could contract a calamity-grade companion beast, he would really be rich. Of course you can. However, such ownerless companion beasts are equivalent to wild beasts. They're different from domesticated cats and dogs. They don't like to be restrained. As long as you aren't afraid of being killed, you can give it a try. Tsukuyami's fingers slid to Zhou's cheek and pinched his face with her fingers. She continued with a smile, "You are so thick-skinned. Perhaps those powerful wild companion beasts will be moved by your shamelessness and really contract you. Even so, the universe is an excellent place for a calamity creature born on Earth like you. As long as you can contract a few companion beasts, your strength will increase greatly. Why are you so afraid?" Zhou was still somewhat puzzled. Even if there were many calamity-grade creatures in the universe, they wouldn't chase after other calamity creatures for no reason, right? Do you know how calamity creatures grow? Tsukuyami didn't answer and asked. I haven't advanced to the calamity grade, so I'm not too sure. Zhou shook his head. Ignoring growth, just maintaining a calamity grade requires a large amount of energy. The higher one's level, the more energy they need. And the best way to obtain energy is to devour other calamity creatures. Tsukuyami's words immediately made Zhou understand the cruelty of the universe. The competition for survival was even crueler than on Earth. Chapter 14:21. After chatting with Tsukuyami for a while, Zhou gained a deeper understanding of the dangers of the universe. Apart from the possibility of being hunted by other calamity creatures at any time, there is also the danger of his essence energy constantly being depleted. He had to constantly replenish his essence energy to maintain his combat strength. If the expenditure was too great, it wouldn't just be a problem of his combat strength dropping. He might even starve to death. Apart from hunting other calamity creatures, he could also obtain essence energy from dimensional zones on different planets. Another important source of essence energy was the companion beasts nurtured on those planets. Only then did Zhou understand that calamity creatures like Tsukuyami and the Fallen wanted to snatch Venus companion beasts. On the one hand, they wanted to enhance their strength. On the other hand, they could use them as food, just like an existence like the dragon turtle. It was because it was too hungry. Ordinary essence energy couldn't satisfy its survival requirements, so it could only enter dimensional zones to take risks. Are you hungry? Zhou looked at Tsukuyami with an odd expression. Tsukuyami stared at Zhou and suddenly licked her lips. This action gave Zhou a fright as he nearly jumped up from the bed. Don't be afraid. I don't plan on eating you. You're so thin. Even if I want to eat you, I have to fatten you up first. Tsukuyami giggled. Joan smiled awkwardly. He also knew that if Tsukuyumi wanted to eat him, she would have done so long ago. There was no need to wait until now to tell him this. If you need it, I can provide you with some essence energy crystals, Joan said. Tsukuyumi looked at Joan and said, ordinary essence energy crystals aren't of much use to calamity-grade creatures. It doesn't matter whether I eat them or not. I need calamity-grade essence energy crystals. Do you have any? No. Joan suddenly thought of something and looked at Tsukuyumi. You entered the Venus dimensional zone a second time and did your best to obtain a ranking because you wanted to obtain Venus companion beasts as food, right? In that case, you should have reached a point where you need to replenish your essence energy, right? I do need to replenish my essence energy, but it doesn't look like it's possible this time. That Zhao's strength should be at the mortal stage, but his stats are very strange. I'm afraid it's difficult to surpass him, Tsukuyumi said. Apart from Venus companion beasts, is there no other place to replenish my essence energy? Joan frowned. Hunting other dimensional creatures or companion beasts is fine. Not all creatures are that strong. There's still some relatively weak fellows. There's still a chance, Moon Goddess said indifferently. Can you go to the moon? If there's anything you need my help with, go to the moon to find Lady Supreme, Joan said after some thought. There shouldn't be such a need, Tsukuyumi said indifferently. I'll go if there's a need. Joan stood up and said, it's time for me to return. Let's talk about it next time. After Joan used spatial teleportation to leave, Tsukuyumi licked her lips again and rubbed her stomach with her palm. She muttered to herself, I'm really hungry. I wonder how long I can last. After Joan returned to Luoyang, he planned on killing the Calamity Gunner and obtaining first place in the Magic Cube. Ever since he talked to Tsukuyumi, Joan realized that Calamity-grade companion beasts were really good stuff. They could fight and eat when they were hungry. They were an essential divine artifact for traveling. After he advanced to the Calamity grade, he would definitely need to use it. There were so many resources in the multiverse, so he needed to have the strength of a Calamity grade to snatch them. Otherwise, entering the multiverse would be suicide. Joan originally had thoughts about the Venus companion egg, so he wanted it even more now. I wonder if the ghost god can really find the location of the Calamity Gunner. If I can't wait for the soul reflection mirror before the countdown ends, I can only try using the ghost god eye. Joan looked at the time. There were still more than 50 hours left on the countdown. He could still wait a little longer. The soul reflection mirror's rainbow light was weakening, but it didn't look like it would completely converge anytime soon. Time ticked by. No other creature could reach the 6-star level, and in fact, no other creature came to challenge it. When there was still an hour left on the countdown, the soul reflection mirror still hadn't completed its evolution. Joan decided not to wait any longer. Firstly, he couldn't wait any longer. Secondly, although the soul reflection mirror had advanced to the Calamity grade, Joan wasn't sure if it could be effective against the Calamity Gunner. After making sufficient preparations, Joan put on the dragon imprisonment armor and held the immortal culling sword. He dressed as Human Emperor and once again arrived at the Venus dimensional zone. Seeing that the countdown was about to end, everyone stared at the countdown. Now, most people felt that there was no suspense in Xiao obtaining first place. After all, a 6-star was just too rare. In the live broadcast, the host asked Professor Gu, Professor Gu, there's less than an hour left on the countdown. Do you think there will be any surprises or suspense for first place on the Rubik's Cube rankings? There shouldn't be any surprises. Before Professor Gu could finish his sentence, he suddenly saw the Rubik's Cube screen glow brightly. A figure stood in the Venus dimensional zone. It's Human Emperor. He's finally out. Professor Gu's mouth has been blessed, right? Holy sh*t, he's finally here. I thought he wasn't planning on coming. So what if he's here? Although Human Emperor is a little strong, he probably can't reach Zhao's level. What are you talking about? I, Human Emperor, am invincible. What Xiao? What 6-star? In front of me, Human Emperor, they're all trash. Human Emperor will win. The majority of humans supported Human Emperor. Although human nature tended to be self-interested, Humans were also emotional creatures. Emotionally, most humans still hoped that human emperor would obtain first place, not Saint Xiao, who represented the Holy Land. Brother, do you think human emperor has a chance of rushing to first place? Zhang Yuji looked at Zhang Chuanxiu. It's difficult. Even if he's human emperor, Zhao's strength is too strong and strange. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to surpass him. Zhang Chuanxiu knew very well that although human emperor was very strong, he relied on that sword after all. He wasn't a true calamity grade, so it was impossible for him to reach Zhao's level. Sai, I know it's difficult, but I really don't want the Holy Land to get first place, Zhang Yuji said. No one wants it, but reality is reality. It won't change because of personal feelings. Zhang Chuanxiu stared at human emperor on the screen and said, but that person, perhaps a miracle will really happen. After all, he's human emperor. Jiang Yin led the core members of the League of Defender to gather in front of the Rubik's Cube. Zhong Zia sat on the sofa, drinking as he listened to the radio. Hui Haifeng was in the conference hall of the office building, watching the live broadcast with a group of Federation officials. His expression was rather solemn. This should be the last hope of pure humans, right? Xia Xianyue of the Xia family side. I wonder if he's a pure human. Although Xia Luchuan said that, he also hoped that human emperor could do something. At the very least, he wouldn't let the fellows from the Holy Land be so arrogant. Chapter 1422. Zhou ignored the metal guard's attack and walked straight towards the tunnel door. The metal guard's bullets hit Zhou Wen's body, but they were blocked by the dragon prisoner armor. They couldn't even leave a mark on the armor. Instead, the bullets reflected by the dragon prisoner armor directly destroyed the metal guard's energy source. The metal guard wasn't afraid of bullets. It was useless even if the bullets shot its body into a hornet's nest. However, once the energy source exploded, the metal guard would really die. The 6 doors opened and groups of metal guards rushed out. Bullets rained down on Zhou Wen, but they were all reflected by the dragon prisoner armor. All of their energy sources exploded. Zhou Wen didn't attack at all. He only relied on the rebound to finish off the metal guard. Zhou Wen wasn't as extravagant as the others. He put away the dimensional crystals and companion eggs that the metal guards dropped, regardless of whether they were good or bad. After all, he usually grinded in-game, and he couldn't take out the items he obtained in-game. He wouldn't let go of any of them if he had the chance to pick them up. Look at His Majesty. He's already such an invincible expert, but he's still so thrifty. He's really a perfect man. He'll definitely be a good husband in the future. I really want to marry him, a girl said dreamily with peach blossoms in her eyes. Come on, what thrifty? You're just lusting after his body. The girl beside her curled her lips and said. The golden battle god appeared and shot out. Zhou Wen still didn't dodge. He secretly circulated his strength and used the rebound force of the dragon prisoner armor. At the same time, he added some strength, causing the bullet to fly back even faster, blasting the golden battle god's energy source. Holy sh*T, that works too? Even a terror-grade golden battle god can be reflected to death. What armor is that? This rebound ability seems to be more domineering than the calamity-grade dragon turtle from before. Human Emperor is Human Emperor. He's too domineering. That's all there is to it. It's just relying on companion beast armor. Look at him. He can get 6 stars. Tsukuyami and Xiao don't need any rebound at all. It's useless to be fancy. The 6 golden battle gods were repelled to death one by one, but it wasn't all thanks to the dragon-imprisoned armor. The force that Zhou, when it's secretly used, was also the key. Otherwise, just the rebound alone wouldn't have had such a strong effect. The alarms at the 6 gates sounded at the same time. Everyone immediately perked up and stared at Zhou Wen, waiting to see how he would deal with the calamity-grade bullets. This was the key. When Xiao cleared the level, the calamity-grade gunner didn't fire. When Tsukuyami cleared the level, the calamity-grade gunner didn't fire either. Only they obtained 6 stars. Even someone as strong as the Fallen had not been able to obtain 6 stars. It could be seen that making the Calamity Grade gunners afraid to fire was the key to obtaining 6 stars. If Human Emperor were to let the Calamity Grade gunner fire a shot, I'm afraid he won't have a chance of obtaining a 6-star, Xia Luchuan analyzed. But from the looks of it, Human Emperor doesn't have that type of ability. His ability is more reflected in his combat strength. He doesn't have the ability to make his opponent commit suicide, nor does he have Tsukuyami's Ghost Walk. It's probably very difficult to make a Calamity Grade gunman not fire, right? Xia Xinhua said. It's very difficult, but we have to do it. It's not that easy to obtain a 6-star, Xia Luchuan said. In fact, many people had the same thoughts as Xia Luchuan. After watching so many challenges, most people had a certain understanding of the rating system of the Venus Dimensional Zone. They knew how to deal with a Calamity Grade gunman. This was the key to the rating. From the looks of it, making the Calamity Grade gunman unable to fire was the most effective way to clear the level with a high rating. There was probably no better way to obtain 6 stars. Bam! Just as people were discussing if Human Emperor could make the Calamity Grade gunman afraid to fire, a gunshot sounded. Almost at the same time as the gunshot, the immortal culling sword in Zhou Wen's hand moved, but it didn't unsheath. He only used the hilt to block the Calamity Grade bullet and changed its direction. After the Calamity Grade bullet changed direction, it shot elsewhere. Zhou Wen walked into the tunnel and advanced. As the bullet shot over, Zhou Wen only moved his arm slightly and used the hilt of his sword to hit the bullets. It looked like he easily changed the direction of the bullets. None of the bullets hit him. It looked easy, but in fact it wasn't that easy. To do this, not only did one need sufficient eyesight and timing, but one also needed sufficient strength and top-notch control of force. Under the impact of the bullet at light speed, one could ingeniously hit the side of the bullet at a certain angle and use an extremely small amount of strength to change the direction of the bullet. As expected of Human Emperor, his eyesight, control of force, and timing are top-notch. From the looks of it, he hasn't advanced to the Calamity Grade. Apart from Human Emperor, there aren't many humans who can do this with the strength of the Terror Grade. Zhang Chenxiu sighed softly and continued. Unfortunately, no matter how good his technique is, as long as the Calamity Grade gunman shoots the bullet, it will be very difficult for him to get a 6-star rating. Is there no other way? Zhang Yuji still hoped that Human Emperor could obtain first place. Not at the moment, Zhang Chunqiu said with a sigh. There shouldn't be any suspense. Although Human Emperor is very strong, he hasn't advanced to the Calamity Grade. Without the effects of domain power, he can't stop the Calamity Grade gunman from shooting bullets. It's impossible for him to get a 6-star rating. If there aren't any stronger creatures challenging him, first place should be Xiao, Professor Gu explained on the program. Professor Gu, since an expert like Human Emperor dares to challenge him, he must have his reasons. Could he have some other tricks up his sleeve? The host was a fan of Human Emperor, so he still held onto a glimmer of hope. There will always be a limit to one's strength. If one can't do it, one can't do it. No matter how strange a move is, it has to be within certain rules. The Calamity Grade gunman has already fired. According to the scoring rules of the Rubik's Cube, there's no hope of getting 6 stars. Any other moves are useless. Now, Human Emperor can only fight for 3rd place. If he can surpass the Fallen and obtain 3rd place, he should be able to obtain a good companion beast. This is also a good choice. Human Emperor's goal for coming here is likely to fight for 3rd place. As a Terror Grade, it's already very impressive to obtain 3rd place. Human Emperor is the pride of us humans, Professor Gu answered with certainty. What a pity. Even he can't shake Zhao's position, Kay Vera said in disappointment as she looked at the Rubik's Cube screen. He's not someone who likes to jump around without confidence, Jiang Yin said indifferently. In the room, Zhong Zia, who was already drunk to the point that his eyes were a little blurry, leaned against the sofa. After hearing Professor Gu's explanation, the corners of his mouth involuntarily curled up as he muttered to himself, "That fellow doesn't like being 3rd. Bang! The 7th gunshot sounded. Chapter 1423. With Zhou, when using the disqualified and augmented by Great Brahma and Truth Listener, it was difficult for the trajectory of the calamity-grade bullet to escape his eyes and ears. At the instant the seventh bullet shot out, Zhou, when it already unsheathed the immortal culling sword in his hand. Immortal culling sword slashed at the tip of the bullet with unparalleled sword aura. As sparks splattered, the immortal culling sword split the sure-kill bullet into two. The two bullet heads flew past Zhou sides and slammed into the wall. They didn't return. What a powerful attack! Xiao, who was watching the Rubik's Cube, narrowed his eyes when he saw this scene. It's because that sword is too powerful. I heard from His Excellency, the Holy God, that sword once killed countless calamity creatures in the mythical era. Even an invincible apocalypse expert is very afraid of it. Thankfully, Human Emperor only has one. If it's as His Excellency, the Holy God said, with all four swords in his hands, I'm afraid no one on earth can match him head-on, said a saint who was watching from the side. It's useless no matter how strong that sword is. No matter how strong he is, he can only get 5 stars if he rushes to the Golden Palace now. First place in the Rubik's Cube is already Zhao's, said another saint. That might not be the case. Xiao looked at the scene and whispered in a voice only he could hear. This was the first time they had seen a sure-kill bullet being sliced apart. It made many humans excited. Human Emperor is indeed invincible. So what if he's at the calamity grade? So what if it's a sure-kill bullet? Isn't it still sliced apart with one strike? Your Excellency, I want to bear your children. Uncle, let's stop fooling around. The young man beside him blushed as he pulled the bearded uncle who wanted to bear Human Emperor's children out of the crowd. The immortal culling sword had already returned to its scabbard as Zhou continued walking forward. He didn't walk very quickly because he needed to determine the gunner's approximate location before using Li Mabai's Ghost God Eye to ensure the highest success rate. There was only one chance, so Zhou couldn't fail. Just as everyone thought, even if Zhou were to enter the Golden Palace, he would at most get 5 stars. If he couldn't kill the Calamity Gunner, it would be impossible for him to obtain a 6-star rating. Clang, clang, clang. The bullets of the Calamity Grade Gunner were constantly knocked away by Zhou. At the same time, Zhou was constantly searching for his location. In the game, Zhou had already tried many times, but every time he felt that his judgment was correct and that the Calamity Grade Gunner should be there, he wouldn't see anything when he teleported over. He couldn't sense the location of the Calamity Grade Gunner at all. However, from the direction of the bullet, there was no doubt that the Calamity Grade Gunner was there. Zhou had tried it before. Regardless of whether he could see it or not, he directly attacked the spot he had determined. However, it was useless. His attack didn't touch anything and only slammed into the wall. What a pity! If such a human expert can advance to the Calamity Realm, Xiao and Tsukuyami might not be able to compete with him, Worm Dugu said with a sigh. We still don't know if he's a pure human. If he becomes a Calamity Super, it might not be a good thing for humanity. Dugu Ji's expression was complicated. Now, all the major factions knew very well that if Human Sovereign was really a pure human, it would undoubtedly be a powerful stimulant to the Federation and humanity. It was very likely that humans would regain their lost confidence and pride. However, if Human Sovereign wasn't pure human, it was very likely that the last sliver of faith humans would be destroyed. Across the entire Federation, there were quite a number of human experts, but there weren't many pure humans. Only Zhou could make it onto the rankings. However, Zhou almost always relied on companion beasts. Furthermore, he was suspected of using tricks, making people feel that he wasn't very strong. Only Human Sovereign could fight all kinds of powerful creatures head-on. Not only would he not be at a disadvantage, but he would even have the advantage. It could be said that in the hearts of many people, Human Sovereign was their last bottom line and dignity as humans. If Human Sovereign was no longer pure human, their last bottom line would be lost. When that happened, more and more people would choose to contract with Guardians. Those who could have taken their own paths might choose to become contractors because of this. At that moment, Zhou had already determined the location of the Calamity Sniper, But he knew very well that even if he teleported over now, it was impossible for him to find him. With a slight movement of his fingers, two crystalline eyeballs appeared in his palm. Zhou gripped the pair of ghost gods' eyes tightly, causing them to collide. Hurry up and end this. Wasting any more time will only lower the score. The same move, no matter how many times it is used or how many bullets it slashes, will not increase the score. It will only pull down the score. If that's what human sovereign is planning, I'm afraid he's wrong. Professor Gu continued his analysis, but he suddenly saw a strange change in the Rubik's Cube. Human sovereign's entire head was protected by the helmet, making it impossible to see his appearance, much less his facial features. But at this moment, one could see the human king's eyes were shining brightly. The light from his eyes penetrated through his steel-like visor, like two red searchlights. Just one look at him would make one's heart tremble. It was as if they were being stared at by a demon. Zhou Wen's eyes stared at the spot he had determined. The wall in front of him suddenly seemed to turn transparent. His gaze passed through several walls, and he realized that there was no calamity sniper at the spot he had determined. However, in the metal wall at the back, there was a humanoid creature. The creature's body was identical to the metal wall. He had perfectly fused with the metal wall and was standing inside the metal wall. Furthermore, he could move freely inside the wall. The extremely hard metal was like water in front of him. Zhou could clearly see that the creature in the wall was holding a sniper rifle. It was mounted inside the wall and aimed at him. So that's how it is. So this fellow can move freely in the metal. He can even use the metal to hide himself. It's no wonder I can't pinpoint his location. Zhou knew that he had to kill him in one strike. Now that he was using the power of the Ghost God Eye, he could see that fellow. However, the power of the Ghost God Eye couldn't be maintained for too long. If he missed and the Calamity Sniper escaped with metal escape, he wouldn't have a second chance. The 7-shot sure-kill bullet is so powerful. There must be some preparation time. At the moment before the bullet is fired, his strength should be completely condensed on the sniper rifle. At that time, it will definitely be difficult for him to use metal escape at the same time. This is the only chance. Zhou was already prepared, but he didn't know if his plan would succeed. Everyone looked at human sovereign's eyes with a glint. In the next moment, his figure suddenly vanished. Even a Rubik's Cube's camera paused for a moment. It couldn't immediately keep up with his movements. When human sovereign's figure appeared on the screen again, he was standing in front of a metal wall. He held the hilt of the immortal culling sword in his hand, and the blade of the immortal culling sword had completely sunk into the metal wall. Chapter 1424. I see. Human Sovereign wants to kill the Calamity Gunner. Unfortunately, he has underestimated the Calamity Gunner. This is the Calamity Gunner's home ground. Even existences like Tsukuyami, Shao, and the Fallen find it difficult to find the location of the Calamity Gunner. All they can do is choose to obtain a high evaluation instead of killing the Calamity Gunner. The possibility of Human Sovereign wanting to kill the Calamity Gunner is slim. It's reasonable for his attack to miss. Professor Gu's analysis was the same as most people's. However, before Professor Gu could finish his sentence, he saw Human Sovereign pull out the immortal culling sword that was embedded in the wall inch by inch. As the immortal culling sword was pulled out, energy that resembled flames spewed out from the gap between the sword and the wall, illuminating the entire passageway. No, it can't be. In the sacred ground, all the holy disciples widened their eyes in disbelief. Professor Gu's mouth was agape, but he couldn't say anything else. All he could do was watch as the light on the Rubik's Cube screen intensified. The light reflected from his pupils almost occupied his entire eye. Boom! When the immortal culling sword was completely pulled out, the energy source that spewed out exploded, blasting the metal wall apart. A humanoid metal creature's chest was blasted open, and its energy source shattered. It fell out of the blasted wall and fell in front of Zhou. A metal crystal fell out of the exploded chest. When picked it up in passing before turning to walk towards the Golden Palace. No calamity-grade bullets appeared. When walked up to the Golden Palace under everyone's stunned gazes. However, before walking up to the Golden Palace, Zhou switched to his terror transformation. He had already tried it before. The Golden Palace's judgment of the challenger relied on two aspects. Firstly, bloodline. If one dripped blood before clearing the level, it would be judged based on their bloodline. If they entered again, they would only increase their star level and ranking. They wouldn't be given a medal ball. However, apart from dripping blood into the Venus dimensional zone, one could also enter using spatial powers. As creatures that entered didn't have bloodlines to refer to, the Venus dimensional zone's reference standards were life providences, life souls, wheel of destiny, and terror transformation powers. The last time Zhou entered, he had dripped his blood. The terror powers he used when he ascended the stage were the disqualified, singularity universe, and God-fiend era. This time, Zhou directly used his spatial powers to enter. Now, he had converted his various attributes to human emperors before ascending the Golden Palace. The Golden Palace's door opened once again as blinding light shone from within. A metal ball slowly flew out and landed in front of Zhou. The image changed to the leaderboard, and everyone's eyes eagerly stared at the top of the leaderboard. When they saw the two words in their minds, they all had an indescribable feeling in their hearts. It was as if it was only natural, but it was also somewhat unbelievable. It was so complicated that it was difficult to describe. Then, everyone's eyes quickly swept to the back of the name. 1, 2, 3. Some people counted silently in their hearts, while others counted out loud. Even if they were not in the same place and were separated by the ends of the earth, they were inconceivably synchronized. 4, 5, 6, 7. Someone finally couldn't help but shout at the top of his lungs, 7 stars. Human Emperor is a 7-star. F*CK. It's 7 stars. Who the F*CK said the Human Emperor can't get first place? Professor Gu, what do you think? The host couldn't help but ask Professor Gu, who was still in a daze with his mouth agape. As a fan of Human Emperor, she was very unhappy with Professor Gu's previous analysis. If it wasn't for her professional ethics, she would have long refuted Professor Gu. This is indeed a little surprising. Professor Gu was momentarily at a loss for words as he coughed awkwardly. Haha, as expected, I, Human Emperor, am invincible. What's Saint Shao? What's so impressive about him? If he has the ability, kill a calamity gunner. I knew the Human Emperor would definitely be able to do it. As the Human Emperor, isn't killing a calamity gunner like child's play? That's not right. That's not what you said just now. How did this happen? Didn't His Excellency, the Holy God, say that it's impossible for typical calamity grades to kill a calamity gunner in the Venus dimensional zone? How'd he do it? One of the holy disciples was still in disbelief. He looked at the 7 golden stars behind the Human Emperor with a look of shock and bewilderment. His Excellency, the Holy God, only said that it's impossible for ordinary people, but he's not an ordinary person, Shao said indifferently. But what do we do now? His Excellency, the Holy God, said that we have to obtain first place and obtain the Venus companion beast. Now, Saint said in a panic. Thinking of the consequences of the Holy God's wrath, many saints trembled slightly. What do you mean? All he had to do was snatch the first place back. Since His Excellency, the Holy God, has chosen me, I naturally have to do it well. I can do whatever Human Emperor can do, Shao said as he walked towards the Rubik's Cube. Well said. Just snatch it back. A voice came from a distant palace as the holy deity walked over step by step. Wherever he passed, all the saints knelt down on one knee and bowed. No one dared to look at him directly. Your Excellency, the Holy God. Shao also knelt down on one knee. Not only do I want you to snatch first place, but I also want you to kill that human. Can you do it? The Holy God asked as he looked down at Shao. If there's a chance, I'll do my best, Shao said in a deep voice. I can give you a chance, but you can only succeed. Failure is not allowed, the Holy God said. Between me and the human emperor, only one can live, Xiao answered firmly. Remember your words. If human emperor doesn't die, there's no need for you to return. The holy god walked towards the Rubik's Cube. When the holy god stood on it, the entire Rubik's Cube lit up. Everyone looked at the ranking on the Rubik's Cube and discussed what kind of companion beast human emperor would obtain. The Rubik's Cube, which had already switched to the ranking, suddenly changed again. It switched back to the scene in the Venus dimensional zone. Furthermore, what was displayed wasn't the entrance to the Venus dimensional zone, but the scene in front of the Golden Palace. Zhou was still standing in front of the Golden Palace and hadn't been teleported out. What's going on? Everyone was puzzled. This situation had never happened before. Furthermore, the countdown hadn't ended. There were still dozens of minutes left. It was impossible to directly determine that human emperor had obtained first place. When Zhou realized that he hadn't been teleported out of the Golden Palace, he knew that something was amiss. He immediately wanted to use spatial teleportation to leave the Golden Palace, but he realized that the space inside the Golden Palace had been isolated from the outside world. He couldn't teleport out. At the same time, a figure entered the Venus dimensional zone. It was none other than Xiao. Everyone immediately understood what had happened. The entire Federation seemed to be in an uproar. F***CK. Here we go again. How shameless can they be? Last time it was DT on. This time, it's the Holy Land. Since they can't win, they resort to underhanded means. Are all the dimensional zones so shameless? Chapter 1425. When Zhou saw Xiao, he immediately secretly engraved the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder. Xiao could make the Terrorgrade Golden Battle God commit suicide, and Zhou was only at the Calamity Grade. He was afraid that he would fall for Zhao's tricks, so he had to be fully prepared. With the dual protection of the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder and truth listener, Zhou didn't dare be careless. He focused on Xiao as he gripped the hilt of the immortal culling sword again. Only one of us can leave alive in today's battle. Please use your full strength and let Venus see who's qualified to be the master of Venus Companion Beast, Xiao said as he walked over step by step. Zhou never liked to waste his breath, much less talk to his enemies. He suddenly unsheathed the immortal culling sword in his hand and slashed down with immortal slaying. Zhou speed and strength were already infinitely close to the Calamity Grade. With immortal slaying combined with the immortal culling sword, he could unleash the power to kill a Calamity Grade. If it wasn't for the fact that the immortal culling sword couldn't be brought into the game, Zhou would have long used it to kill Kuei. He wouldn't have needed to go through the trouble of using Tyrant Behemoth's gloves. Zhou had seen Xiao before. Back then, he was still far from the Calamity Grade. Now, he must have just advanced to the Calamity Grade. Zhou didn't believe that he could withstand the power of the immortal culling sword. However, Xiao didn't dodge. When the immortal culling sword slashed in front of him, he reached for his waist. There was also a sword there, but it was different from the immortal culling sword in the East District. The sword in his hand was a Western-style rapier. The rapier was completely silver, and even the scabbard was the same color. It looked like it was made of pure silver, and the patterns on it were extremely exquisite. At the instant the rapier was unsheathed, Zhou only saw a silver light collide with the immortal culling sword. Clang! The two swords clashed, producing a shockwave that sent Zhou and Xiao retreating. The shockwave constantly spread out in all directions. After hitting the metal wall, it produced a rumbling explosion. Zhou was somewhat surprised as he looked at the silver rapier in Zhao's hand. According to what he knew, a West District weapon like a rapier didn't appear too long ago. It was unlikely to appear in myths and legends. However, the silver sword didn't suffer any damage after clashing with the immortal culling sword. Clearly, it wasn't an ordinary item. However, Zhou couldn't figure out the origins of the sword. Lord Shengshun was right. A sword made of holy metal can indeed block the immortal slaughtering sword. The holy disciples who were watching the battle were overjoyed when they saw that the immortal slaughtering sword was blocked. Of course, Lord Saint God has never missed a chance. That is the saint sword that Lord Saint God personally bestowed to Xiao. The saint sword is made of saint metal, the foundation of the divine temple. It has been baptized by Saint Force for countless years and has long become a saint item. It is almost indestructible. How can it be damaged so easily? Human sovereign is only at the terror grade. All he relies on is an immortal culling sword. Now that the holy sword can withstand the immortal culling sword, it's extremely easy for Xiao to defeat him. The saints discussed animatedly. In the Venus dimensional zone, Xiao didn't immediately counterattack. He casually floated in midair with the sword in his hand, casually held in front of his chest. He looked very elegant and natural, as though he was an otherworldly swordsman. You haven't reached the calamity grade. If I use the calamity domain to defeat you, I'm afraid you won't die in peace, Xiao said to Zhou. Why? Do you plan on not using the calamity domain? Zhou asked calmly. I'm getting interested. I'll show you the true strength of a saint. As Xiao spoke, he instantly stabbed out with the sword in his hand. The blade vanished from Zhou Wen's vision, preventing him from seeing the trajectory of his sword. Zhou Wen's expression didn't change as his body instantly moved. At the instant he moved, a silver beam flashed past where his head had been, nearly brushing past his hair. If Zhou Wen had been any slower, his head would have been penetrated by the sword. So fast, Zhang Yuji's heart palpitated as she watched, and Sheng, Li Xian, and Jing and company were also watching the battle. All of them were so nervous that their palms broke out in cold sweat. Zhao's figure gracefully followed as he stabbed out again and again. The sword and his figure were unbelievably fast. Usually, his speed could reach the speed of light. At the instant he struck out, he was so fast that even Zhou Wen couldn't see the trajectory of his sword. Even Tsukuyami's expression turned solemn. Clang, clang, boom, boom. The sounds of the blades clashing and the shock waves constantly echoed. Zhao's terrifying sword was completely blocked by Zhou Wen. Not a single strike managed to injure him. Impossible. Although human sovereign strength is powerful, it's only the power bestowed upon him by that sword. It gives him the power to kill a calamity grade. However, his speed and reaction shouldn't be at the calamity grade level. Furthermore, the speed of Zhao's sword stab is so fast that even ordinary calamity grades can't see it clearly. How did human sovereign block it? The saints were alarmed. Li Xian and the other people who were on good terms with Zhou Wen, as well as the ordinary humans, were pleasantly surprised. Wang Lu also heaved a long sigh of relief. Her palms, which were clenched in front of her chest, were unknowingly covered in cold sweat. I told you a long time ago. What kind of existence is human sovereign? A mere calamity grade can't do anything to him. The people who had been watching in trepidation and had even stopped breathing immediately beamed with joy when they saw human sovereign remain composed under the unbelievable stab and block all of Zhao's attacks. I'm increasingly suspecting if human sovereign is really a pure human. Such an ability really isn't like a pure human, Zhang Chuanxiu said jokingly. Indeed, he can actually see the trajectory of the stab. Such eyesight should have exceeded the limits of the terror grade, right? Zhang Yuji said. No, he didn't see it, nor can he see it. The ability I'm talking about isn't this, Zhang Chuanxiu said. He can't see it? Zhang Yuji was taken aback as she asked in disbelief. How did he block it if he can't see it? Furthermore, it looks like he's doing it with ease. It doesn't look like a fluke. Of course it's not a fluke. It can't be said that he can't see it. It can only be said that he can't see the trajectory of Zhao's stab, but he can see Zhao's movements. Seeing that Zhang Yuji didn't understand, Zhang Chuanxiu continued explaining, Zhao's stab is unbelievably fast. It might also be a spatial ability. No matter what ability it is, it's impossible for a terror grade human sovereign to see the trajectory of the stab. Even if he can see it, it's impossible for him to react. Therefore, human sovereign didn't look at the stab at all. He kept watching Zhao's actions. Although Zhao's speed is very fast, it's not as fast as the stab. It's still within the range of human sovereign's judgment. Human sovereign used Zhao's actions to determine Zhao's attack location and block his attack. After Zhang Chunxiu explained, he couldn't help but marvel. It sounds easy, but a battle at that level can change in an instant. To be able to accurately block a nearly invisible sword with just the other party's actions, such an ability is just too astonishing. Even if I had the same strength as him, I might not be able to do it to such an extent. This fellow doesn't look like a human no matter how I look at him. Chapter 1426. As a disqualification, Zhou Wen had the ability to see through the weaknesses of all things. He naturally understood immediately that it was impossible to see Zhao's sword clearly, but he could make a judgment from Zhao's actions. To others, it was impossible to use judgment to block all the attacks in such a fast-paced battle, but Zhou Wen was able to do so easily. Everything had its strengths, but there was definitely a weakness. Unless the other party's overall level was strong enough to crush Zhou Wen would eventually grasp the weakness. Xiao naturally discovered the problem as his sword technique suddenly changed. Xiao wanted to use his ever-changing sword technique to make Zhou Wen make a mistake in his judgment. As long as he made a mistake, even if it was just a millisecond slower, it would result in a fatal blow. Why is Zhao's sword technique a little strange? Zhang Yuji's eyesight wasn't good enough after all, so she could only see a vague impression. Therefore, she felt that Zhao's sword technique was somewhat different, but she couldn't tell what was different. Zhang Chunxiu said with a heavy expression, "It's like a mismatched jigsaw puzzle, right?" "Yes, that's the feeling." "What's going on?" With the standard that Xiao has displayed, his sword technique should have already entered the realm of perfection. It's impossible for him to make such a mistake, Zhang Yuji hurriedly said with a nod. That's not a mistake, but Zhao's doing it on purpose. The first move he's using now comes from different sword techniques. The style of the previous move and the next move are completely different. It's even completely opposite. It's to make it difficult for Human Emperor to determine the angle and position of his attack. Zhang Chunxiu paused for a moment and continued with a frown. This Xiao is really extraordinary. He uses all sorts of sword techniques without any flaws, but it makes me feel like he's in a different position. What's even more terrifying is that the sword techniques he's proficient in cover almost all the sword techniques I know. To be able to master all sorts of sword techniques to such a level, this fellow's talent is so high that it's terrifying. Then isn't Human Emperor in danger? You previously said that Human Emperor relied on judging his movements to block his attacks. Now, with all these messy sword techniques combined together, and it's difficult to tell what's real and what's fake, wouldn't Human Emperor be severely injured if he makes the slightest mistake? Zhang Yuji said worriedly. In theory, it's indeed difficult not to make mistakes. However, Human Emperor probably won't be able to leave even if he wants to. He has to not make any mistakes or think of a way to turn defense into offense. Otherwise, he can only wait for death, Zhang Chunxiu said. And Sheng and Li Xian were so nervous that they didn't say a word. They naturally could tell that Zhou Wen was in a terrible situation. There were tens of thousands of sword techniques in the world. It was impossible for a person to see all of them, even if he exhausted his entire life. Furthermore, there was a way to use falsehood in sword techniques. As long as Zhou Wen made a wrong judgment, he would end up tragically. From their point of view, Zhou Wen was dancing on the tip of a blade. Any carelessness would immediately lead to a bloody calamity. Where did the Holy Land find this Xiao? He's too terrifying. To be able to cultivate his sword art to such a level, even without the help of the Holy Land and Guardians, he's definitely not ordinary, Xia Luchuan said with a heavy expression. Xia Xianyue could also tell that Xiao Qian's sword technique had indeed reached the realm of perfection. It was probably difficult to find a few humans in the world who could cultivate their sword techniques to such an extent. Xiao Chun wasn't inferior to the most famous swordsman at all. Furthermore, in one aspect, Xiao Chun was better than them. The Holy Spirit Associations, he was also a sword Dao expert. Luoyang's female sword immortal and Bright Sun swordsman were all sword Dao experts. but their sword techniques were all mastered to the extreme. However, Xiao Chun seemed to have mastered all types of sword techniques in the world to the extreme. If a swordsman with slightly inferior talent were to train their entire lives, they probably wouldn't be able to reach his level. However, in Xiao Chen's hands, such sword techniques were only basic. Lord Shang deity, Xiao, is indeed talented. I'm afraid he's the only holy disciple to be able to train his swordsmanship to such a level. The elderly holy disciple beside the Shang deity said softly, "His sword technique is indeed very good, but such a sword technique can't kill human emperor," the saint said indifferently. The saint was alarmed when he heard that. Such a sword technique, coupled with the trajectory technique that even a calamity grade might not be able to see clearly, still can't kill human emperor. Even if it was a calamity grade, it would probably be difficult for them to last long if they were to engage in close combat with Xiao Chun. They would eventually make mistakes in their calculations. This human emperor is indeed an outstanding person. It's a pity that I didn't discover him in the past, the saint said with interest. The old saint naturally understood that what the saint meant was that he hadn't been able to nurture human emperor into a saint. Your Excellency, if you're interested in him, you can get Xiao Chun to spare his life. It won't be difficult for him to join the holy temple and become a saint, the old saint said. The saint turned her head and glanced at the old saint. The old saint's body trembled as he hurriedly knelt on the ground and said with a trembling voice, "I spoke too much. Please punish me, Your Excellency." You are not allowed to say a word for 3 years. Otherwise, take your own life, the saint said indifferently. The old saint didn't dare say a word as he cowed out. The saint ignored him and continued. All saints have to be nurtured from birth. There can't be any exceptions. Those who could really understand were worried if human emperor could block Xiao Chen's sword technique. Or perhaps human emperor would forcefully turn the situation around and use a method of mutual destruction. However, they soon realized that human emperor didn't do that. He relied on his sword technique to fight Xiao Chun. He was still able to fight back and forth. There wasn't the thrilling scene they had imagined. No matter how Xiao Chen's sword technique changed, Zhou didn't make any mistakes. He accurately blocked all the attacks. Furthermore, his attacks also caused some trouble for Xiao Chun. Does he really not see Xiao Chen's attack? Xiao Luchuan, who was originally very worried, watched for a while before his expression gradually turned odd. Human Emperor didn't look like he was relying on his judgment to fight Xiao Chun. Otherwise, how could he not make any mistakes under Xiao Chen's complicated sword technique? However, they knew very well that it was impossible to see Xiao Chen's attack. Even if he could see it, it would be too late. He had to take action before Xiao Chen's sword appeared to be able to block it. Therefore, Human Emperor definitely didn't rely on watching. This fellow is really a monster. He's definitely not a pure human. Even the head of the Cape family couldn't help but say, "I really want to fight Human Emperor. Even if I die, it'll be satisfying." In the ultimate family clan in the North District, Lance stared at Zhou, one with glowing eyes. The heart-defying sword that Zhou, one had comprehended from the 3,000 sword intense, was a sword technique that encompassed all kinds of styles. Coupled with the abilities of the disqualified, no matter how Xiao Chen's sword technique changed, it didn't affect Zhou much. However, Zhou had no choice but to admire Xiao Chen's prowess. Up to now, he hadn't used the same sword technique twice, greatly weakening the disqualified's ability to see through his weaknesses. Chapter 1427. Since you aren't using the Calamity Domain, I'll kill you before you use it. Zhou was just about to take the opportunity to attack when he suddenly felt the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder react. In his divine sense, the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder glowed brightly as the book automatically opened. Golden runes appeared inside. Zhou also felt immense mental pressure. Thankfully, his willpower was terrifyingly strong to begin with. The mental suppression didn't waver his will. Didn't you say not to use the Calamity Domain? He didn't even inform me before using it. He's indeed that shameless Saint Xiao. Thankfully, Zhou was prepared and wasn't affected. Just as he was about to curse, a thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately gave up on the thought. Zhou stood there in a daze as his expression turned ferocious. He held the immortal culling sword in his hand and swiped it at his neck. No good. That bastard Xiao went back on his word. He used the calamity domain while old Zhou wasn't on guard. Li Xian was alarmed as he jumped up, but there was nothing he could do. Wang Lu was also given a fright. She widened her eyes and covered her mouth, not daring to continue watching. Everyone recalled the scene of the metal guards and golden battle god committing suicide when Xiao tried to clear the stage. After all, human sovereign was only at the terror grade. It wasn't impossible for him to be controlled by Zhao's calamity domain to commit suicide. However, human sovereign still looked like he was struggling. He didn't wipe it away directly, as though he wasn't completely controlled and was still resisting. Xiao didn't hesitate as he stabbed at Zhou with his sword. His sword was unbelievably fast to begin with, and this strike was so fast that it nearly vanished with him. Almost at the same time, Zhou's eyes regained clarity as his body suddenly spun. The immortal culling sword that was aimed at his neck spun once with his body before slashing down at the void. Chi! The sound of silk being sliced sounded. As it was too fast, no one saw what had happened. After pausing for a moment, they realized that Xiao had already returned to his original spot. A piece of his robe's sleeve had been sliced off. As for Zhou, he was still standing where he was with the immortal culling sword in hand. His eyes were clear, and he had no intention of committing suicide. Holy sh*t, he nearly scared me to death. Li Xian immediately understood that Zhou had lured Xiao into the trap. However, from the looks of it, he hadn't really injured Xiao. How shameless. Didn't you say you wouldn't use the calamity domain? Did he want to have a fair fight with the human emperor? How long has it been? And you're already going back on your word. How is this reneging? This is simply a premeditated attempt to harm someone. Fortunately, my great emperor is strong enough to not be harmed by him. Ren Huang is still strong. It's a pity that I couldn't kill him with one strike. People like Zhang Chunxiu were also shocked. At that moment, they heaved a long sigh of relief. Wang Lu was still nervously staring at the live stream without relaxing. You're despicable. Thankfully, he hadn't used all his strength to kill Zhou. Otherwise, he might not have been able to escape unscathed. Likewise, Zhou said to Xiao. At that moment, in his body, the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder was frantically transforming essence energy. Even Truth Listener was transforming essence energy, indicating that the power of evil nullification was working. Even so, Zhou could sense immense mental pressure. Zhao's calamity domain was rather complicated. It wasn't a simple power. Only Zhou could withstand it. If it were an ordinary terror-grade creature, they probably wouldn't have been able to hold on and would have committed suicide. I originally wanted you to die without pain, but since you don't appreciate it, I can only let you die in pain, Xiao said as the calamity domain's power on his body grew stronger. As the domain's power strengthened, Zhao's entire being became more and more sacred. He was like a god, as though taking another look at him was blasphemy. Many ordinary people who were watching the battle through the Rubik's Cube seemed to be possessed. They prostrated on the ground and worshipped Xiao on the Rubik's Cube screen. In front of the Rubik's Cubes, all over the world, there was a black mass of people kneeling. Even the people watching the broadcast on television were in the same situation. All of them prostrated in front of the television and prostrated themselves in front of Xiao. In the beginning, they were only ordinary people. Later on, legendary and epic humans couldn't resist it any longer. Gradually, they couldn't help but prostrate. What a powerful domain power. Its influence can actually spread over such a large area. Zhang Chunxiu realized that many of the Zhang family members nearby had begun to worship things like phones and televisions. Even Zhang Chunxiu himself felt a strong influence on his psyche. Li Xian and Ensheng were fine. Their psyche was very strong, so watching a live stream didn't affect them much. Ensheng could also withstand it, But many of the soldiers and workers in the overseer's office were already prostrating on the ground like devout believers as long as they watched the battle. Even a mythical officer had a ferocious expression as though he was in a battle. His knees were bending bit by bit, and he was about to kneel on the ground. Is that fellow's calamity domain that powerful? It can actually affect such a long distance? They're on Venus, but this is Earth. Li Xian could also feel the pressure. He looked at the soldiers and officers outside and thought to himself in shock. That should be a domain that focuses on psyche. Therefore, it can transmit information through video without being limited by distance. There's no need to worry about this. Young Master's psyche isn't something an ordinary person can compare with. It's a huge mistake for him to use such power to deal with young Master, and Sheng said coldly. However, Zhou Wen, who was on the battlefield, wasn't as relaxed as Sheng imagined. It was true that Zhao's calamity domain had very strong psyche power. This psyche power was also the power that had the strongest influence on humans in the outside world. However, in Zhao's calamity domain, it wasn't just this power. There was also a power that caused the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder and truth listener to react. Or perhaps there were other powers. In this complicated calamity domain, Zhou Wen realized that his body was still affected. Although it wasn't to the point of committing suicide or completely losing control of his body, it still produced some adverse effects. His body's behavior and actions were somewhat abnormal. Just like a patient with Parkinson's disease, he would experience uncontrollable trembling of his fingers. Although it was very mild, it wasn't serious. However, Zhou Wen was fighting Xiao. The rapier in Zhao's hand didn't stop. Zhou Wen's fingers only trembled a few times before he was immediately in danger. The tip of the rapier slashed across his shoulder, leaving a mark on the dragon and prison armor that had absolute defense. Thankfully, it didn't penetrate him. However, the power of Zhao's calamity domain was still strengthening. The effects on Zhou Wen were getting more and more intense. It wasn't just his hands. His face, body, and even his legs and feet would feel a cramp from time to time. Although it only happened occasionally and wasn't a continuous effect, it was enough to put Zhou Wen in a very bad situation. Not good. Zhou Wen could still forcefully control his body without any major problems, but as Zhao's calamity domain grew stronger, it was only a matter of time before Xiao seized the opportunity. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.